All right, guys, what's going on? We're here. We're live. Welcome to a brand new Poker Live podcast. My name is Joe Ingram, joined today by a man who, you know, this is like a coming of this big circle, because back in the day when I first started playing poker, I used to listen to this podcast called Big Poker Sundays. It was hosted by Haralabos and Scott Huff. And my favorite podcast now is the BS Report by Bill Simmons. And Haralabos is you're a guest on there at a pretty decent frequency, right, these days?
Yeah, I haven't done one since last year, but I did a few of them for sure.
I have my audio on somewhere here. Let me see if I can. Is that on your end or is that on my end?
Are you asking me?
Yeah. Do you have any of the links open?
Do I have any what? I'm sorry. Oh wait, maybe I clicked on something. That's not me. Oh, that's my guy. Hey, turn that off, Corey, would you?
Oh, that's probably me. All right. Well, let's get into it. We're live. So,
okay.
Yeah. So, Voulgaris, what's up? Welcome to the podcast. How's it going, man? Thank you for coming on.
It's going good.
I had an intro plan, but then I got sort of distracted by hearing my own voice in my ear. So,
how'd that happen?
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes when you keep the live stream open, the audio will come into there, and then it's sort of just it all goes together. So, hey guys, we're live on YouTube. We're live on Twitch. If you guys have any questions, comments throughout, let me know. So Bob, you said you were going to come on, and then you said it should be interesting because you don't play much poker anymore and you don't have much of a life. So and now it looks like you're in an undisclosed location in a random country on a hotspot card here. So so what are you up to these days?
I'm just getting ready for basketball season, to be honest. Just getting ready to that, and then I'm building a house somewhere. So that overseeing the process of that, the construction of that'll pretty much keep me busy for the next, I would say, well, basketball in the next 6 or 7 months, but the house building will probably be the next 15 months or so, 15 or 16 months.
Did you say you're building a house in an undisclosed location?
Undisclosed location. Unnamed, undisclosed location.
Can we speculate on the undisclosed location?
It's not America and it's not the United States. That'll be about all I mean, it's not a big secret. I just, for whatever reason, I have very little privacy in my life, and that's kind of like the one thing I want to keep private, I guess, for now.
It's interesting. It seems like, so for the privacy factor thing, it seems like you do a lot of podcasts. You do, the ESPN stuff. You've been on Bill Simmons' podcast a few times. You've been on some other basketball podcasts too. So it sort of seems like you do enjoy being out there a little bit more, or do you wish you had a little bit more privacy, or is that something a trade-off?
I think I enjoy doing the stuff that I do from time to time. I think it's fun. It's entertaining. But then there's always trade-offs that I've got not a ton, but I definitely have a few very, very dedicated lunatics in my life that harass me on the internet, and in some cases more than just on the internet. There's definitely that. I had a guy for a while who was pretty, I mean, he worked really hard at creating different Twitter accounts and Instagram accounts to harass me, harass my girl. There's just a lot of weirdos in the world. You'll see them on 2+2 too. They're mostly on the sports betting thread, where they'll be like, "Oh, he's a fraud. He doesn't make any money betting on sports. It's all a fraud." So there's a lot of those guys, and so in that sense, I haven't really gained very much from any type of publicity that I've done. And I'm not looking to gain anything, because I'm not selling anything, I suppose, other than the dream. I'm just selling the dream.
Yeah, it seemed like back in the day, I remember you were sort of pursuing an NBA job. So I think you were trying to get yourself out there a little bit more, maybe get your name out there a little bit more.
Yeah, that was the initial impetus for it. That, and then also there was a referee scandal where there was that referee who was allegedly fixing basketball games, and the company line that the NBA put out there was that, oh, he was betting on games. Oh, he was only betting on games that he officiated, but he wasn't doing anything to influence the outcome of the games to favor his bets, which was bullshit. So I just thought that was really annoying, and the public kind of had to realize that that wasn't actually true, that he was in fact betting on the games, that he was greffing, and he was in fact making a bunch of really dirty calls to benefit his win percentage. And so that was really the main impetus for it. And then that whole scandal also kind of disillusioned me a little bit from betting on basketball, because that cost me a lot of money. I lost a lot of money betting games where the line, because this referee wasn't just betting games quietly on his own, he was using other big syndicates to move money for him. He didn't know that he was only getting $5,000 a game, but the other guys behind it who were partnered up with him were betting in the millions a game. And so you'd have these random games that this referee was reffing where the line would open like let's say the Chicago Bulls are playing Minnesota and Chicago would open -6, and the ref and his crew would bet the Bulls and the line would go to like 8.5. And so our model would be like, oh, there's so much value betting the dog at +8.5 because the line should be like probably 6, 6.5. And so we just were on the wrong side repeatedly. And then we actually stopped betting sides that year because we just thought we couldn't beat sides anymore. We were losing so much money. We didn't realize that we had a referee that was, you know, affecting our ROI. We weren't making that many side bets to begin with, and it turned out a lot of them were actually opposite this referee crew that were betting games. So it cost me a bit of money.
What year was this in?
This was, so he started betting in 2000 and, well, he started betting for a long time, but the year where it really messed me up was 2007. That was really the year where I think it cost me the most amount of money. And that's when they were like in full swing, and it was like the 2007 NBA season. But yeah, he had like, I mean, this guy was out of his mind. There was a game in, I believe the 2006 or 2005 season where the game was right on the number. And he had been reffing the game so poorly in favor of one team. He was like so obvious that the other team was just up in arms going crazy. And so at the end of the game with like 0.1 or 0.2 seconds left, he actually called 2 technical fouls on a player, and they shot the 2 free throws, and the 2 free throws actually turned the bet from a loss into a win. And they won that game. And so you won't find that game on NBA TV, Hardwood Classics. I can promise you, the NBA won't put that game on TV. But that was a legit real game. It was Orlando at Utah. I believe it was the 2006 season. But yeah, the spread was like 3.5, and the game was on 3, and it landed 5 or something after the 2 free throws. But yeah, players were insane. Like he was tossing players out. Players were getting fined because they were complaining so much. And I never knew that. Like I knew he was a bad ref, but I just thought he was a hothead. I didn't realize that he was actually cashing tickets. So,
wow. So you wrote about this game on your website, Alone in the Corner, which I guess you don't really update much anymore, but you used to.
No, so I didn't write about that game specifically. I wrote about a different game, which was Orlando and Houston. That's the one where he calls a foul on a player who's like 3 feet away from the foul, and then the player complains about it, and he gives him a technical. That's a different. There was a lot of this stuff. Like you don't win 85% of your bets unless you're like messing around with the outcomes of the games.
So what's been the long-term effect in NBA sports betting because of that? Has it sort of went back to normal how it was before that, or are there sort of things that have?
I think a couple things happened. One, there's more awareness now on like the league monitoring what's going on with the referees. So there's a little bit more of a, I guess, micromanagement of the actual like players. The referees have to stay within certain statistical thresholds. I think there's that. But then the other side effect was, and then the league never actually said he fixed games. The company line was that he did not. So I don't know. I feel like if I was a referee, I'd be like, wait a minute. The worst thing that could happen is I get caught, and maybe I go to jail if I align myself with some gangsters like he did. But the league is going to try to sweep this under the rug if I get caught, probably. So what's really the worst that could happen? Like if the league, I don't think if the league found this out, I think what they would do, and there wasn't a criminal investigation attached to it, I think they would just quietly fire the referee and just move on, because the last thing the league wants to do is admit the fact that one of their referees was fixing games.
I mean, it seems kind of like the poker scandal. Like the cheater is sort of cheating so inoptimally, where it's like obvious in your face. You know, like with the ultimate back in the day, which I believe was around 2007 as well. Like, yeah, it seems like if you're a smart super user or a smart cheater in these spots, it should be really hard to get caught, right?
Yeah, the scary people are the ones who are devious and also smart. There's a lot of devious people who are dumb, and they're the ones who get caught. But the scary ones are the ones who are devious and are smart enough to realize that they only have to, like, a friend of mine described this to me, like if you had a super user ability, what you would probably do is just only use it in spots where you weren't really, really sure, like very rarely, and just take a look every once in a while. And that enough would be, or you could use it all the time and just be like, oh, okay, well, let me just play normally and just try to win just a little bit of money. Mm-hmm. Not like, you know, remember that famous graph where everyone's over here and then Neo's like way off the screen up over here. Like that's something, like think about if you actually had a super user who was actually using Poker Tracker and was trying to keep his stats within line with the community, how dangerous that would be, right?
I think about these things a lot. It's high stakes PLO. Anytime you have a guy, especially at PLO, who's sort of been crushing, like it's always in the back of your mind, even on PokerStars, that something, could be happening.
I think the thing you have to worry about with PokerStars and sites like that is you have to worry about, not about the sites themselves, not with a site like PokerStars, just because they're just making so much money. I think you have to worry about like what happened to the guy, the Swedish kid, or Finnish, was he Swedish? Jens Kilonen, whatever his name is. You have to worry about that, but leaving your computer unattended and having someone install a root access to your computer and then just taking screenshots every 10 seconds or a video, that I think is very likely to happen. I mean, I would be, if I was one of these high stakes poker player, I would literally be so paranoid with my computer, which I already am when I'm not, just for my own stuff. And then I'd be like tossing away computers every month or however long,
Yeah, I think something like that happened with Jeans in Barcelona, which is the event you're referring to. And then Doug Polk, WCG Rider, had someone at his house like put something on his computer and was watching. I don't exactly know the exact specifics behind that one too, but I mean, this is a very obvious threat. Have you ever had something like that happen to your stuff or your computer?
Yeah, in 2000 and I want to say 2004 or 2004, I was in Los Angeles. I went to Los Angeles for the LA Poker Classic, and that's when I discovered that it happened. I didn't know when it happened, but basically what was happening was I was dealing with a guy who worked for me at the time, and he was working for me in, I can't remember where he was working for me, somewhere in Central America, but I was living in Canada at the time, and he was living in, I think, Costa Rica, but I'm not sure. But anyways, we would communicate via, at the time, MSN Messenger, and I would tell him what the orders were, like, bet this game, bet that game, that sort of thing, and he would go out and fill my orders for me. And it would get to the point where the minute I would hit send, like, the market would start moving. Like, I would say bet, Golden State -5 and hit send, and then like within like 10 to 15 seconds the market would start moving. In other words, like it would start moving. So I was like, what are you doing? Like, which accounts are you betting? These are all leaking. And as it turns out, someone had installed something on my computer. At first I thought he was fucking with me, like, dude, like, what are you doing? What's going on here? How are we not getting fills and the lines are moving? And so we actually did like a test where I was like on the phone with him. I was like, okay, I'm going to send you something here. And I said, okay, I'm going to type something, don't do anything. And so I typed something and didn't do anything. And of course the market started moving. And so we used that to our advantage for a little while. And then they either went broke or I don't remember what happened. Something happened where it stopped. And so that happened to me. But aside from that, I haven't had anything really like that happen to me. I have other situations where people will give me an account with the sole purpose of like stealing my plays, and they'll go out and get like 20 to 30 other accounts for themselves and bet. But that's a different scenario. That's not like a hack. That's just more a unscrupulous partner. And
so you never found out who did that to you specifically?
No, I have no idea who it was. It was such a long time ago. Yeah, I'm not sure who that was. Just could have been anyone, I suppose. It had to be someone like not involved in poker but sports. It had to just be like a sports thing. People knew I was going to be at the LAPC, got access to my computer at the Commerce and put something on there.
It's crazy. It's crazy to have to worry about.
Yeah, for sure. Nowadays, you just be a lot more secure. You can, you can encrypt your hard drive. You can do all kinds of other things that make it, that lock down your, use like Tails if you really want to, like a really secure operating system. But back then, I think I was like on a Dell Latitude or something with, you opened it up and there was no password. You just had access to everything. So
when did you, I was trying to think. So like when we were going to have it in the podcast, I'm like, well, okay, so I'm describing someone like, oh, who's the guest going to be? And I'm like, well, a poker player, a professional sports player. I'm like, wait, is he actually a poker player? You're not really a poker player. You play in the one drop. You play in high stakes poker. I know you play live, maybe home games, or you never really played online, did you?
I did play online. I was a Sugar Cube on Ultimate Bet, and also I had like 10 different Ultimate Bet accounts, because Ultimate Bet you could just create as many. Ultimate Bet was great. You could create a new account, direct transfer from your old account to your new account, use the same information. Like you weren't pretending you were someone else. You'd put your real name in one account, your real name in the other account, and just transfer the money and just start playing. So I think I was like Père Noël. Can't remember some of my other names, but I had a bunch of different names on Ultimate Bet. I got super used on Ultimate Bet, but I was able to like not lose a lot of money. I thought I had what was called a cash out curse, because I would request a cash out.
Oh my God. Oh, wow. I'm freaking out about cashing out right now on a specific site because of the cash out curse. Like I 100% believe in the cash out curse. If you cash out on a poker site, you
Right.
you were gonna get fucked hard, and
Well,
you're
this
gonna lose a
wasn't a
lot.
cash out curse. This guy's requesting a withdrawal. The way Ultimate Bet would do it is they would let you keep on playing with your money, and then Russ Hamilton or whoever would log in and beat you for it before you had a chance for them to process your withdrawal. That was the cash out curse. I never actually withdrew a dime from Ultimate Bet, I don't think. It was just, I think like maybe I did a little bit or I did some transfers here and there, but yeah, I didn't lose a lot of money on Ultimate Bet. I would just grind the 25-50 no limit game and then like run it up and then lose and then, you know, grind it back up again and then lose, and just, that happened a lot. But yeah, Ultimate Bet was fun. That's when I actually started to, like, now obviously, even me being a decent poker player then, I would be like very, very, I couldn't beat the very, very lowest stakes now because the play of poker has advanced so much. But then I was like a decent no limit player for the time. Now I'm like a dinosaur. But I'm aware of that. I am aware of the amount of time it takes to be good at poker, and I just don't want to devote that time to it.
Do you play? You play some live tournaments. I know you travel a little bit. Do you play poker at all in any other way?
I used to play in some home games here and there. But yeah, I'll play like a poker tournament where it's like a nice location to go travel to. Like, so I live in Monaco. I'm a Monaco resident part of the year, so I'll usually always play the EPT Monaco just because I'm living there around that time and I have to spend a certain amount of time there in order to have my residency. So that's one I'll always play every year. If I didn't live there, I probably wouldn't play it, to be honest. But and then the other one, maybe I played the Barcelona one because I like Barcelona. It's a cool city. The real problem I have is there's a real dearth of poker tournaments when the basketball season is over for me. So I can't really play during basketball season. Like, I would like to go to Aussie Millions every year, but that's right around the time that it's very busy for me, so I can't do that.
That's true. And I guess the playoffs are going on during not most of the series, but
playoffs is fine though. I can travel and do the playoffs. It's like I'm usually in Europe for April anyways, so I'll come back to go to some playoff games every once in a while. But the last 2 years I didn't really go to many playoff games because I was in Europe. So
you lived in LA for a while, so you played home games out there. You went to the Clippers games and sat courtside. And I've never
really lived. I mean, I've always had a place in LA, but I've never like lived there. I've just always kept an apartment or a house. And I did play in some poker games in LA, but not very much. I never gotten like the really, really good games. But I've been around them. Like, I know people who are in them and I know about them. Me and Ike have made one pretty bad decision to back one player in a heads-up match and thought we could coach him and teach him how to play good, and we just got absolutely whacked. So we had a really good spot. We had a heads-up player in a spot where he was playing probably one of the best spots of all time. Like, maybe not the best spot of all time, but for sure top 3 spots of all time. But it didn't matter because the guy we had just fell apart. You know, he didn't get the spot because he was an intelligent person or an intelligent poker player. But we thought we could overcome that, and we couldn't. Turns out we couldn't. So we were the dog in that match, even though we thought we wouldn't be.
Wow. So you and Ike Axton were trying to coach a rather fun player.
So I don't know about Ike. I mean, I got like a little bit of help from Ike and was like, okay, I have a guy who can play another guy. What can we do? And yeah, I spent time trying to teach this guy how to play poker better through, like, not through my knowledge, but through like acquired knowledge from people who I respected. You know, gave him tables to look at, like limping range, how to play pre-flop. And I actually got to watch the match. That's like the other part of it, is I actually got to watch it. And I remember like seeing him call, like seeing him raise 4x pre-flop and then call like a 10x re-raise. And he was like kind of hiding his hand. So I was sitting kind of not behind him, but in a spot where I could almost see it. And I remember like going like, why isn't he showing me his hand here? Like, the flop comes, he's calling a bet. The turn comes, he's calling a bet. The river, he's check folding. And I'm just like, so I'm like, why isn't he showing me? And then finally on the river, I catch a glimpse of it. And it was like deuce 4 of clubs. And I was just like, wait, that wasn't in the playbook. Why is this guy? And chip dumping was out of the question. It wasn't a situation where the guy was chip dumping or was like scamming us. It wasn't that at all. It's just that he was a stubborn old man who wanted to play his way. And he took one, actually, in fairness to him, he took one bad beat very early on and just fell apart. And that's what happened. He got it all in with a flush versus a pair and a gut shot, and managed to lose to a running or like he got it all in with like a flush on the guy had like a gut shot, but it was like a set. It was like 7, 8, 9. He got hit along with a flush, and the guy ended up making a running full house. And that was a one time. They ran it one time. This is no limit, and so that was I looked at him and I was like, wow, he's done. I can tell he's done.
So you're in a home game in LA.
It wasn't a home game. It was just a heads up match somewhere.
Undisclosed location. Where are these heads up matches taking place?
There's a lot of, the world is a big place. So I don't know. I don't want to out the guy. I don't want the guy, not that he would ever know, but I don't want the guy to know that he got, I mean, I don't think he cares because he won like 7 figures, but I think if he knew that he was playing someone who got coached, he might be like, oh, that sucked, you know?
So the fun player who was the top 3 spot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I doubt he's watching Chicago Joey's podcast, but
he might be a poker fan, you know? I don't know.
He's for sure a poker fan. I can promise you that. And so it's possible.
You might be on 2+2. How did you pop into the thread? Because a couple people suggested like, hey, why don't you get Haralabos on the podcast? I'm like, I don't know if Haralabos wants to come on the podcast.
No, I watch your podcasts. I follow the thread on 2+2, and I watched like the Ben one, because Ben's renting the apartment that I used to rent in Vancouver. I got rid of my Canadian residency last year in May, so I moved away from Canada, got rid of all my stuff, and established Monaco residency. And so Ben took over my apartment, and so I watched that one. I thought this is pretty good, so I thought this is something I'd be interested in doing. And then I saw a couple other ones as well. I saw like the Lex one when he like said something about Antonio, so I watched that one. And I'm still a poker fanboy at heart. Even though I don't play as much, I still follow it a little bit, and I have a lot of friends who play poker, and I'm interested in the tournaments and stuff like that.
Who are the friends in poker you have?
I have a bunch of friends in poker. Good friends with Ben, Jason Kuhn. I mean, pretty much anyone who plays like those high stakes tournaments I'm friendly with, or I'm friends with, or have like backed or taken pieces of. So I mean, Eric Side. I mean, just the list goes on and on. There's all of those guys. I've been around poker for a while, so. You kind of
you set me up for that one, because there was a bunch of people who said ask Bob about putting in half of the high roller fields in all these tournaments. I was like, wait, he stakes half of the field in these tournaments? That's
no, that 500K I had a lot of pieces in that, which I thought it would be a better spot, but it wasn't. And then even when I knew it wasn't going to be a better spot, I was just like, I can't play the tournament myself because I'm not good enough to be profitable. That's part of it. But the other part of it is that I'm subject to a withholding tax. So they're going to take 30%. And because I'm a Monaco resident, I have no tax write-off ability. Like, it's not like I can go, oh, I can write off my expenses in other tournaments to get that back. Like, I don't want to file a U.S. tax return just for the one high roller tournament I'm going to play. So I didn't play it. So I just ended up taking pieces. And yeah, I had like I had 50% of 2 players in that one, 47 and 52. I had like 20 of a bunch. I didn't have the winner, but I had the second place guy, so that was good. I think I lost like maybe 1% in that tournament. Between 1 to 3% I ended up losing.
Yeah, when they came out, because I have a couple other friends who bought a lot of pieces. When they came out with that field, you're like, oh, this field looks great.
No takeout, right? No takeout. There was no vig. Looked like a great spot. So the best spot ever was the first ever 1-drop. Nothing will ever compare to that, I don't think.
Well, there was businessmen galore in that field, right?
My table was myself, Guy Laliberte, some French-Canadian guy named Malibu something. He was out in like an hour and 45 minutes. It was the craziest thing you could ever see in your life. Phil Ruffin, some other guy who I don't remember, some really, really tight Russian, and then Tobias Renkenmeyer and Phil Bort. And it was just like me, Tobias, and Phil, just like trying to like isolate each other to get access to the bad players. It was actually pretty bad because they both had position on me. So I would like re-raise, and then I would get like 4. It was just really, really, really tough. But it was so bad that like Phil Ruffin was literally falling asleep at the table after the dinner break in the middle of hands. Like, that's how like the players were so bad. Like, he wasn't posting his big blind. He didn't know what a big blind was. He didn't know what this was. It was just like such a juicy tournament. That was the best tournament ever.
Wow. Sure. So those guys didn't come back most of them didn't come back for the second $1 million version of that, right?
No, yeah, they didn't. I think a lot of people just played, and I talked about that a little bit afterwards that year. I think a lot of people just played because it was like, oh, this is cool. This is a one-time thing. I'll support Guy and play this tournament. But the idea that they were just going to ante up $1 million every year is a little presumptuous. Like, I don't know, they're not plus. Not only they're not plus EV, they're drawing dead. Some of them. So the idea that they're going to keep on doing this is pretty crazy. Guy himself didn't even play the second one drop. So.
Really? He said that one out?
Did he sit that one out?
I think he played that one. I'm not 100% positive. I think I just saw a hand with him.
No, he didn't play
in the second one.
Oh, did he? Yeah, he might have. I don't know. He didn't play the 100K. That's what happened. Yeah, he probably did. I don't know. I had the guy who won the second one, though, so that was good.
Who won the second one? Antonio?
No, Coleman won the second one.
Oh, yeah, Coleman won the second one. Okay.
I had a piece of him. I had a big piece of him. So.
A big piece of him? What does that mean?
I think I think he had a big piece of himself too. I want to say, I don't remember if I had 15 or 20 or 10. What much did I have of him? Maybe 10. So maybe not that big. Maybe 10%. 10%.
It sounds like you have like multiple millions of dollars of actions in all of these.
No, those are like one time. These are like one time. I'm bored. Basketball season is over. Like just the summertime tournaments. I don't buy any pieces in like these European high roller tournaments. I don't go around buying pieces of that. I'm just not in. It's just kind of like, oh, I'm in Vegas. I don't want to play. Well, let's take pieces of people, and that's kind of what's happened.
So you can't be bothered with the 100Ks. You just 500K and above.
It's not. There's a lot of. Have you ever dealt with these poker players before? It's a joke. Like they're horrible. Like
in what context? Because I think I can agree with you, but I'm curious as
like okay, I took a piece of someone in the 500K. He cashed, and then like when it was time I gave him the money before the tournament started, cash, whatever chips, whatever it was, wire. I think actually I wired him, and then now I'm just like, hey buddy, can I get paid? And he's like, oh yeah, I haven't really left the house yet since. I'll get around to it next week. And it's like, what are you talking about? You'll get around to it next week. Like that's not how it, like. No, like go and pay me my money. Here's my wire instructions. Do something. And it just was like, it was a joke. It was like 10, 14 days before the guy paid me. I'm like following, he's playing tournaments at the WSOP, and it's like, what do you, so there's that. And then there's like, I know some other guy was like, I don't know, they're just not very responsible. Anyone who chooses to play poker for a living, for the most part, I would say falls into that category of not being very responsible. They don't want a job. They don't want to do anything. There's the guys who are really, really successful, guys like Ben86, who probably are responsible, but they're at the upper echelon. They're there in the lab grinding away and figuring out and make game planning for opponents, whereas other guys are just like trying to bink scores in tournaments.
There's a big difference between tournament players and I say this all the time. Cash game players, tournament players, even from having them on the podcast. I mean, you sort of notice a big difference between having like a poker discussion with a tournament player and poker discussion in general. Obviously there are some outliers in the tournament world, like a Fatal Halls and a Pertouche and stuff like that, but
yeah, there's some sharp. I mean, sometimes I play poker and I'm talking to some of these people and I'm just like, why are you playing poker? Like, why don't you go do something else? Like, find something else to do with your life, because it's not a very, I mean, I get that it's fun, but like Fedor, like what is he doing? Like
that's what I say. I'm like, you need to go like run a country or something.
Like that. Yeah, like go cure cancer or go like get into finance or something, but he chooses to play poker, which is cool. And then there's other guys that are just like, I get why they play poker, because they're not really employable in any other way, right? But there's some guys who are definitely smart enough to be doing other things for sure.
Yeah. When you you said when you have I ever dealt with poker players, and then you said I gave this guy like 50% of his buy. And no, I got to say, though, I haven't done that before. I haven't ever been like, oh, yeah, I'll buy half of your 500K high roller package here. I haven't done that before. No.
Well, I mean, but it's all like relative, right? I mean, just anytime you're doing something for someone, and I just want like risk, like there's a couple other guys who are really, really honest and trustworthy. I'm not saying this guy wasn't honest. He just wasn't very reliable. He just didn't care, But there's other guys who are like Scott Seaver's really, really honest and an honorable guy, but like if he tells you he's going to meet you somewhere at 2 o'clock, not to show up till 4, because he's not going to be there at 2 o'clock. I can promise you. And I haven't even had very many interactions with them. Like, but the few that I have, I just know they've always been late. So I just last few times, like for the 500K, I was just like, yeah, I'll meet you there at 2 o'clock, and then I would just show up at 4. So.
Yeah, I used to be. Well, I guess I used to be really late, but you know, I realized this. I had Dana Grano on a podcast, and I was like 10 minutes late, and he was like, you know, if you're late for something like this, it's usually like a sign of you know, like it's a sign of disrespect in a way. And I was like, I never thought about it that way. So ever since I had him on the podcast, I've tried to be on time for most things that I do, which obviously, you know, doesn't always. I
definitely agree with that as well. I think that's just it's something where you're giving someone your word. And you're basically saying that you think your time is more valuable than someone else's time. And I think when you look at it that way, someone might be like, oh, that's not true. I don't mean to be that way. I'm going to make a better effort to be on time more often.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people just haven't been talked to like that. No one's ever really told them like, hey, this is wrong. You can't do that. I think when the reasonable people, when you actually do approach it in that way, they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I won't do that anymore. Like yourself.
Zudi on Twitch says Daniel spanked me into never being late. I mean, like you said, someone just lets you know, like when someone actually tells you that and verbalizes it to you.
Daniel's interesting because Daniel will have these like really, really moral and like these thoughts like this where he's very considerate of others. And then he'll just go on like these rampages on Twitter about like Jonathan Aguiar being like, it's just like, it's weird. I'm just like, I don't understand part of it. Like what, and I guess everyone is different in that way, but I just like, I didn't like, okay, you're going to make a point of, okay, you should be on time. It's disrespectful, but like, you know, hoping someone gets raped in prison.
Right. Yeah.
Something they did to you is, it's a little weird, right? It doesn't really jive. I'm sure if he had to take it back, he probably
no. Somebody asked him, "Would you take that back?" He said, "No." He said, "I'm not taking it back."
Yeah, he's an interesting dude that way. When he believes something, he has no problem telling you what it is, no matter how ridiculous it might sound to another person.
So many people might have heard what you said, but they might not have heard you. You said raped in prison. Like I'm pretty sure this is the comment he made. It was him, and it was who was the other person he was talking about? Aguiar, and he was talking about.
It was Jonathan Aguiar and Brian Micon. But you know the interesting thing about that is, and I like Daniel a lot. I think he's a nice guy. But the interesting thing about that is like he had like equated it to like somehow there was like some karma in the world because they had done him wrong in some ways, which is I think if he were to like take it back and just read that again, he'd be like, wait a minute, that sounds really kind of crazy that these people gotten, or maybe it's more like he's a good judge of who is a bad person, and he has interactions with bad people, and then karma eventually gets him. I don't know, but it was Micon, who I don't know at all, and Jonathan Aguiar, who I know a little bit, and yeah, it just seemed like it was a little mean spirited.
Yeah, he's been getting a little carried away on Twitter lately, man. He's like the questions of the day, and there's like political. He's just like
he's an interesting guy. He's very very open to thinking outside the box, and I don't know, it's different. It's like, yeah, I spend a lot of time on Twitter, but I follow Daniel on Twitter, but I don't remember the questions of the day. Some of them were like, I don't remember. He had some racism. It's just like there's never like a positive way to talk about race, I think, on social media. You're better off just not trying, because you're going to attract all kinds of lunatics on either end of the spectrum, and what you say might be, misconstrued as well. So
yeah, I think I sometimes click on the questions and like see the conversation being started. It's
too much. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I don't see much productive conversation being started in these things. I mean, I enjoy reading them. They're very entertaining. So I guess if that's his goal, is to be entertaining, but I think he just likes to provoke discussion and sort of, I don't know, get something rolling on there, man. I don't know. He's fun though.
Yeah, he is for sure. And he's pretty amazing in terms of the fact that he's like adapted his poker game over the years, at least for tournament poker, to be not just relevant, but to be quite good. And some people will still say he sucks, and some of the high rollers players will say that, but you can't argue with his results. He's definitely very good at a certain aspect of poker, which is playing a specific style that is adaptable to the surroundings. There was like a time I remember he was playing the WSOP, and he was like, it's profitable to play every hand pre-flop. I remember he thought that for like a year. This is like back in 2009 or 10 or 11, but he definitely doesn't believe that now. But it's just interesting. He's always willing to try different things and adapt. He's pretty adaptable. Him and Eric Seidel, John Jawanda, those are the guys who I look at tournament poker as being pretty special, because they've been around the entire time. Look at Eric Seidel. The guy's like he was in the Rounders, Johnny Chan, the Master video, right? Like what was that, 1987 World Series of Poker? I don't even know.
Back
See
in.
you. Yeah, see you tomorrow. No, I'm good. Thank you. Okay, see you. See you tomorrow.
See you later.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, Eric Seidel. I mean, I think he's like I think he's chip leader in the WSOP Europe main event right now, or something like that, with 20 some left. Maybe. I think when I checked last, he was.
That to me is crazy. That, and then like John Jawanda not playing poker for a year, playing the Barcelona high roller, or main event. Which one was it? Whichever it was, maybe it was the main event, and winning that. Those guys are like, they're just good poker players. They're smart people too. Daniel as well, I guess. Ivy hasn't really had any results in a long time. I'm sure he's doing all kinds of other things, but it's just interesting seeing that. And then you'll go to these tournaments and you'll see like people you haven't seen or heard of that were on like the WPT, and you're just like, wow, what happened to you? Like, you're still trying to play poker? What's wrong with you? That's so sad. I get that a lot. I feel really sad when I see some of these people around poker tournaments.
Oh, you mean like the old guys who used to be on WPT in like 07 and 08 and
yeah, and who were winning tournaments then, but are still like now like trying to get backed and trying to just get a score, and still playing the same like ridiculous style that's not going to be profitable, that sort of stuff. I don't want to mention any names, but I remember seeing two of them together at the one drop last year, just like railbirding it and just being like, did I just step into a time warp? Like, where you guys are still playing poker? What are you doing?
Do these guys try to hit you up? Because obviously, I would assume you're known as someone who puts people in action or backs people. So do you get a lot of people who randomly are like, hey, can you want to buy this piece or want to buy that piece or anything like that? Or do they know that you're not?
I don't ever back like people in cash games. Or I like the last guy I backed for tournament poker, who I actually had a backing arrangement with makeup and whatever. This is like, but as it turns out, he also likes crack cocaine, right? That's his Shaniac. And so when you ever find out about this stuff, and I love Shaniac to death, but he would say like he never did crack when he was playing poker. That's what he told me. And I only bring this up because he's so adamant that crack's not that bad. And it's a funny joke. Like the last guy I backed was also into crack. But yeah, that was the last time I ever backed anyone. I didn't know he was on crack, but I just stopped because it just wasn't, it's clear to me that it's not a positive life EV thing. I'll take pieces of people in certain events at par, but like putting someone in on like a 50% makeup deal and like basically supporting their life while they're trying to cash in poker tournaments isn't something that's appealing to me at all.
Yeah, it seems like that model of staking sort of going away, and now it's the individual packages for each, for like a tournament, like someone sells a piece for 100K or someone sells a piece for individuals, marks it up at 1 point whatever, depending on what the buy-in is.
Yeah, exactly. And I for like the one drop last year, I don't think I paid any markup at all. I was just buying there, it's $1 million. I was like, there was very few people who were buying pieces. So I think for the 500K, people had all these ridiculous, well, the one drop, I sold you the one drop at par, and this one has no vig, and the one drop has 11% vig, so I'm charging at like 111. And I definitely paid markup in the 500K, and I paid probably too much, and I won't make that mistake again. I won't do that again. But yeah, it's interesting the way the markup thing goes. I'm always like, when you're a buyer in these big events, like money is tight. So the best thing to do is just to sit around with money available day of, and then buy pieces of people at par.
What are you sitting at the RA casino with $10 million in a briefcase, like waiting?
No. But you just have like the ability to like transfer money into their RE account or give them, whatever, wire the money into their bank account, that sort of thing.
I want to imagine you just sitting outside the area poker at those slot machines, just waiting for the players to come over there, and they're like, "Bob, you want interested in 20%?" And you're like, "Yeah, okay, here you go. Here's right for you."
Yeah, that doesn't happen so much, but it's mostly like a lot of times people would be like, "Oh yeah, just give it to me whenever." Like I have like a pretty good. You won't find anyone who I have like a bad reputation. I don't owe anyone money. Most people actually have a funny story. Ben Salsky, 3 years ago, was like leaving the country. He had finished playing at the Aria and he had chips. And I think maybe I had like a 5 or 10 minute conversation with him during a 25-50 game. And he was like, "Hey, Haralabos, I'm just going to give you this money. Do you want it?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, I'm leaving and I don't want, it's like a pain to get it wired. And you can just get it back to me however you want, some other way." And I was just kind of like, wow, this guy is trusting. And I was telling my girlfriend at the time that, and she was like, "Yeah, people trust you." So yeah, I just took it, and then I can't remember if I gave him stars money or did something for him, but yeah, that's definitely happened before.
Was there a VIG involved in this? What do you?
No, it was like just I didn't have any use for it. It was just doing him a favor. It was just he didn't want to. I was like, I think maybe like I could have used chips or something anyways because I wanted to like. I didn't have very much money in Vegas either, so it was just like just a simple like, hey, just people. You'll see this a lot also in poker. People will be like, this is the opposite of that, but you'll see this a lot where on Twitter they'll be like, hey, just landed in Berlin. Anyone got euros for me? It's like, dude, you're a professional poker player. Wire your money ahead of time. I get that Jungle Man will come up to me and be like, do you have any euros? And I'm just be like, dude, like, fuck off. Like, wire your money ahead of time, Jungle Man. I'm not here. Like, what is wrong with you? You play poker for a living. But Jungle Man, every tournament is like, does anyone have euros? And I told him, I'm like, no, I don't have any. And he started laughing, like, oh, the thought that I didn't have just like wads and wads of euros to dole out was just so appealing. It was just so funny to Jungle Man. He couldn't believe it. But yeah, so this is the opposite of that. This is, Ben just had too much and didn't have any use for it wherever he was going. So he just gave it to me. And literally I didn't even know his last name. I just knew him as like Ben Sauce. I had him on my phone as Ben Sauce 123.
What? How much did he give you?
It was like 120 or 125,000, something like that. Like I think it was like hang on to it till I come back or something. I don't know. It was weird. It was like a weird. I don't know. I can't remember exactly. He'll probably remember more easily than me. But for me, it was just like kind of like a strange. I was like, okay, sure.
Some people in the chat are talking about the mic staticky. So you're on your iPhone mic, and whenever it put against your beard, it always makes a static noise. That's what you guys are referring to in the chat. That's the sound you're hearing sometimes.
I'm sorry. I'll try to hold my microphone more stable for the people who are watching this on your podcast, Joe.
No, I don't really notice it too much, but people they're like, "What's that? What is that noise?" I'm like, I think it's when it like goes like that or something.
There's probably nothing there. They're just crazy and they're hearing things.
Are you not able to grow a beard?
I could grow like a really patchy beard. I think the whole beard thing is kind of, I don't know. It's weird. Like all these guys with like these like the Dollar Beard Club, really big beard thing. I always look at them. I'm just like, I wouldn't grow one if I could, but I couldn't. So maybe that's why I don't like it. I'm not sure.
Well, I bring this up because I was at the gym today and everyone's got a beard. I'm like, I wish I could grow a beard. I mean, like I just can't though. Like I don't get much more facial hair than I guess a little bit more than this, but
right.
I just can't.
I don't know. I have some friends who have beards, and I will say that almost summarily they all smell. Like their beards smell. Like you have to do a good job of cleaning it, and they're always stroking their beard, and it's long. But like if you hang around them enough, and you're like drinking with them, or you go out and eat with them, they smell. Their beards smell. If you're close enough to have a conversation with them, you can smell their beard.
I've never smelt their beard before. I'm gonna
just get sweaty and smells. Yeah.
I'm gonna put this to the test though, man. If anyone has a beard out there, can you at least confirm and let me know? Oh, Clyde, that's a good one. Do you have a Jungle Man impression? We love Jungle Man impressions on the podcast.
Do I have a Jungle Man impression? I don't know. Probably not. The thing about Jungle Man is like this is what he does a lot. Like the Jungle Man. Like I told Jungle Man once in Los Angeles, I was like, Jungle Man. He's like, where have you been? I haven't seen you around. I was like, I can't take the swings of being a gambler anymore, Jungle Man. I went to esthetician school. He's like, what's that? And I was like, Google it. And so he did. And he was like, you're really doing that? And he believed me. He really believed. He's like, he also told a funny story about, he's like, okay, so I bought this property with, Boosted J, right? Okay, I bought this property with Boosted J, and we're going to be renovating it together. Do you think it's a good idea, or do you think it's a bad idea? It's like, how much interest are you paying, Jungle Man? I don't have very good credit, so I'm paying 10% interest. Do you think that's a good idea, or is that a bad idea? Those are the Jungle Man stories I get. Him deciding he's going to flip homes in the Hollywood Hills with someone else. Neither one of them have any experience doing it, and paying 10% interest on a mortgage.
He's actually told that he talked about that on the podcast we did. I did a couple with him, and he said he bought a house there, and he let me know how it went. And I'm curious. I'm gonna have him back.
He'd let you know how it goes?
No, I'm not sure how it went yet.
I mean, he's 100% to lose money on the deal. He's got no shot. I told him that too. He says, "What do you think?" I said, "You're just a dog. You just have no chance of making any money." Every person that he interacts with is going to try to rip him off. Every contractor that I've bought and built like 3 different houses. This will be 4, and they're not criminals, but there's definitely, you have to know what you're doing, and you have to make sure that you're getting like the right bids on things. Some people will come in higher and some people will come in lower, and you have to do a good job of. I don't see Jungle Man or Boosted J, like getting it right the first time they try doing it, because almost nobody gets it right the first time. So if your first house flip is going to be like a $6 million house in the Hollywood Hills, chances of it working out are probably not too good. At 10% interest on your mortgage, that's the other part that is pretty interesting.
So if you built a couple houses, are these in, where are these houses at?
So I owned a house in LA, and I sold it in 2010 when I realized I just wasn't able to spend very much time there, so it didn't make sense keeping it. But I bought it in 2007, tore it down, rebuilt it, and sold it like as soon as it was done. I am building a house here now. I also built the house in Canada, so that would be 3, I suppose. But yeah, I don't own any of those houses anymore. They weren't necessarily done as flips, but they were just, I enjoy doing that. I enjoy buying a house, fixing it up, living in it for a while, and then selling it.
Hmm. You said you're not a Canadian resident anymore. You're born in Canada, right?
I'm a Canadian citizen, but Canada's got a pretty good program where, I should have done this a long time ago, where if you decide you don't want to live in Canada anymore, you can just move and give up your residency and still maintain your citizenship, which means you get to fly around on a Canadian passport, but you're not liable to Canadian income tax as long as you don't spend any time in Canada. And so I don't spend any time in Canada anymore, and I've taken up residency elsewhere, in Monaco, and live there. And so that's pretty much, so when I moved away from Canada, I had to get rid of, like, you have to actually be moving away. It can't just be like, oh, I'm going to pretend I'm moving away. Like I had, I can't have a Canadian driver's license. I can't have healthcare. Can't have any bank accounts. Had to get rid of all my furniture, all my belongings, no social club. Like, they'll even look at it like if you have like a subscription to a magazine or something, there's like a very, very strict set of rules and guidelines that they go by. But if you're willing to do that and you don't want to live in Canada anymore, you can choose to live in a different country that has a lower tax and make your life there, and the Canadian government is cool with it. Whereas in the United States, you can't do that. If you're a US citizen, you want to leave, you're still liable for income tax no matter where you live, unless you renounce your citizenship. And then even then, you have to file some paperwork and pay some exit tax as well.
How did you decide on Monaco as the place that you wanted to establish residency?
I mean, there's lots of different things you can look at. For me, I like the quality of life there. I was spending time there already to begin with. I have like some, it's a good place for gambling. I mean, it's famous for gambling all the way, like its history going all the way back was like the Monte Carlo casinos, and there's like a big backgammon scene. There's a big, hachipuri scene. There's just like all kinds of different gambling going on there. And so it's just like a good spot for that. There's no personal income tax. That's the other part that's appealing. So, but it's expensive to live there, and in some ways, like, I don't save that much because like there's a value added tax, there's tax on everything you buy. It's expensive to live there. Like, real estate is not cheap. So it kind of balances out a little bit. I just got tired of paying, like, Canada is a weird country in the sense that sports betting isn't really illegal, but it actually is not illegal, actually, betting on sports. But like, there's just like some weird, I don't know, there's like a weird connotation to it in some ways. And there is no legalized sports betting like nationwide where they don't have, where there's no like casinos. There's no like Las Vegas in Canada. So because of that, if you want to do business in Canada, you have to bet like in the UK, or you have to bet someplace else. And I just find it odd to be not able to have like other companies in Canada service me as a client, as a professional bettor, and then still be required to have like a partner in Canada and pay income tax to my partner, which is like Revenue Canada, which is the Canadian IRS. So that was part of it for me. It's another reason why I would never live in the United States. Like, if in the United States, they're busy busting every bookmaker in the world who is in the United States, arresting people. It's kind of, they're arresting bettors mistakenly thinking they're bookmakers. Why would you ever want to be a sports bettor and be in the United States? It's impossible.
Is this sort of once you get to a certain level? I mean, you're pretty much at the top level of sports betting, right?
I don't think it has to be once you get to a certain, look at these poker players, right? And the daily fantasy guys. They're living in, like, poker players, like, someone like Ben, or all the successful online poker players, or yourself. We're living in the United States, paying income tax on the money they're earning. Their customer or their partner was PokerStars. The US government shut them down, forced someone to move to Canada or Mexico or wherever else to play, and yet you're still liable to live in these countries and send the tax back to the United States. That just seems like, if you're my partner, if the IRS is your partner, because they're getting 50% of everything you get, right? Shouldn't you have like hey, like buddy, partner, like don't make it so hard for me to have my business. Like don't shut down PokerStars. This is my business. This is what I do. So I think even no matter how big you are, just from like a point of like, I want to be able to go to sleep at night and feel like I'm not getting screwed over. Like I have a really good friend of mine who played poker, did the poker thing, had to move away for that, did that for a while, decided he wanted to start doing daily fantasy, moved back to the United States, played daily fantasy, successful at daily fantasy, and then now he's like, oh my God, my state is just said that daily fantasy isn't legal anymore. My friend is getting sued by someone, like those 4 guys who got sued. Mm-hmm. It's kind of crazy. Now the whatchamacallit, the Southern District of New York, or whatever, is investigating into daily fantasy. So it's just really tough to be a gambler, poker player, DFS guy, and live in North America, I think, and do so optimally.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy with DFS. You can't even, I mean, you could go to Canada, I guess, and keep playing, but.
Well, the Canadian part is weird too, because technically these sites are supposed to, if you're Canadian, in some ways, like there could be a situation, because they don't classify them as gambling sites, they don't have to withhold money from Canadians. Like when I go to Vegas and play in a poker tournament, if I win, the casino is required to hold 30% withholding tax for me. So if these DFS sites get deemed as gambling, the DFS sites will be required to withhold 30% from the people who live in Canada as well. So I don't think it'll be tenable if that happens. Eventually all this stuff will get legalized, but until it does, I'm staying away basically.
We had a couple, obviously, a lot of people wanted you to talk about DFS. So let me find the specific DFS question. I think I had someone sent in here. He said, Haralabos has been pretty vocal about the DFS thing, and pros like Asani Fisher playing thousands of games versus recreationals for tiny buy-ins. I think he has a lot to say about DFS, period.
Right. So part of me feels like it's cool for, what was the guy's name?
Asani Fisher.
Yeah, if Asani Fisher wants to go and like bum hunt $1 tournaments all day, that's within his right. He's not doing anything wrong. But I feel like the sites themselves who are marketing in such a way to think to say like, oh, come and play, this is a skill-based game. I think if the people who signed up knew they were going to get bum hunted by professionals all day, and there's some people, there's all kinds of things you can do. Like you can set it like, oh, I only want to accept 1 match from this person. There's all kinds of things, but most people don't know about that. And so I feel like the industry, until the sites themselves police it a little bit better, I feel like it's incumbent on the professionals to have a little bit more class, I think, or just like foresight and like maintaining the industry level to make it so the industry can grow. Like don't sit here and like murder all of these squares that are signing up. Like let the squares play amongst themselves for a while. That seems like probably the best way to do it, but it'll never happen because it's just game theory. If you don't do it, someone else is going to do it. So exactly, therefore I might as well do it myself. Right.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Like, well, if he stops doing it, I'm sure there's going to be other people who might not be as visible as he is. I think he's pretty visible in terms of getting his name out there and being active on Twitter and being active in the forums and stuff like that. But I'm sure there are a lot of other pros who are sort of low key, stay under the radar, who are doing the same exact thing. You just really aren't paying much attention to it. You might not notice it because. Well,
you would notice it though, because you would just see that they're signed up for like $150 or $300 $1 tournaments, and they're signed up for like $500 heads up tournaments, right? Mm-hmm. That's the difference between DFS and poker. Poker, you're never going to multi-table the smaller buy-ins because you have to physically do something. DFS, you can multi-table all of them because it doesn't require, once you set your lineup, it doesn't matter if you're playing a $500 tournament or a $1 tournament. It's the same level of amount of work. You click a button, you hit send. That's where I think it gets really, really scary for the longevity of these DFS sites. They are going to be, the fish are just going to be completely torn to pieces unless they do a good job of maintaining like some sort of player pool, segregation, something like that. limiting the number of buy-ins you can do, that sort of thing. But they don't want to do that because they want as much volume as possible so they can justify these large valuations, so that when they sell pieces to Robert Kraft and other people, you know, ESPN, Disney, they can say, oh, this is a $3 billion company because we've got this much volume. And if they don't have the Asani Fishers of the world playing $2,001 heads-up matches, their volume goes down a little bit. So,
yeah, it seems like innovation from new sites or other sites is happening a lot faster. I guess it really never happened in poker. You never had a new site or a different site who wasn't doing as well sort of try new things. Whereas in DFS, it seems like there are some sites who are at least trying these other things that people are against, the single entries and anonymous heads up was on Stars Draft for a little bit. So there at least seems like there are some sites who are trying to sort of fix that problem quicker than other industries might have done.
Yeah, possibly. But the problem is, it's kind of like, the problem with these types of sites, this is what sports betting is cool in some ways. If you open up a sports betting site, it doesn't matter how many other customers that sports betting site has. Your experience is going to be the same. You're going to bet on a game. You're going to get the same amount of enjoyment out of it. You're going to have a win probably the same amount. You can bet like a 5-team parlay and win the same amount of money with one site versus another site who has thousands and thousands of customers. Whereas the DFS experience is built on, you need critical mass. You need a lot of people playing. The site needs to have a lot of customers, otherwise the experience isn't the same, at least for the multiplayer tournaments.
Do you think about getting into DFS yourself, or is that something that...
If I did get involved in DFS, I can say this, the chances of me doing it in my own name are 0. Like, I just wouldn't do it. There's lots of reasons for that. I wouldn't want... there could be certain things like where if I was betting a lot of, you know, picking a lot of players in one game, that would probably lead people to believe that I might like the over total bet on that side, on that team. And so there'd be like some information leak that might, that might impact my bigger business, which is actually betting if I was still betting on that game. So if I did do DFS, I probably wouldn't do it in my own name. And then on top of that, I probably wouldn't do it in my own name, just because I think that if I were to do it, I would be like, okay, I would just go in and scoop up all this money. And just like, I mean, if the sites aren't going to pull bum hunts every single player, very easy for me and the people who work for me to create some sort of script to go in and register, mass register. We're already on top of all of the injuries, mass change lineups. When we find out the injury, that we usually get that information before everyone else does. It would just be very, very, very easy for that to happen. And so if I were to do that, maybe then actually I would do it as myself, and I would call myself Harala Hood or something like that, like Robin Hood. And then, but I wouldn't give the money away to the poor. I would just keep it for myself. I don't know what I would do. Maybe, but I probably not. I think ethically for me, it's hard to actually justify doing DFS when DFS was considered legal and sports betting was considered illegal. Now it looks like they're treating it the same way as they treat sports betting, so I might be a little bit more interested in it. But back when it was like, oh, this isn't gambling, this is just a skill-based game, then I just was like, well, I'm not supporting this industry.
You could, for NBA season, you could pretty much use a lot of information you have, and it would translate quite well over to DFS, right?
Yeah, we'd have to make some adjustments, but I think that I would do pretty well at DFS.
So what is it like, I guess, sports betting NBA on the level you do? Like, I guess it has to be sort of secretive, but a lot of people want to know, like how does it work exactly? Like, what is the process like?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, that'd be like asking, like, I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty, I mean, it's
too much strategy. Just tell me too much strategy.
No, it's just, there's a lot involved that is like not really beneficial for anyone to talk about. Like whether I'm betting or not betting anymore or whatever I'm doing, it doesn't really make sense for me to tell people like, oh, I would go and do this, or I would go and do that, or I would go. It's just like anything. You come up with a prediction of a number and you want to make a bet, and then you have to actually go ahead and make the bet. And aside from that, there's not really much that I could really delve into.
It's kind of like people posting poker graphs these days, like it,
or like telling you what their optimal like game theory approach to like a single opponent would be, and like if I'm playing heads up, I'm going to be raising these percentage of hands, these percent, like 3-betting these. You just couldn't ever do that and expect to be profitable, I don't think. So
I actually want to go back to one comment you said earlier, which was the DFS people, the DFS guys, do they not think if you went to DFS you'd be able to do as well there in DFS? I mean,
I'm not sure. There's a lot of people that think I'm just a fraud, Joe.
Right? Yeah. Is that really true?
They just think that I have never ever been successful at sports betting, and that I'm just a fraud. I don't know. It's interesting. So I don't know. I mean, I'm cool with that. I wish everyone thought that. And I said this before, and I'll say it again. They can pool their money together and open up a book somewhere outside of the United States. I'm not in the United States, so there's no legality problems, and we can do it that way. So I do think there would be a learning curve. I do think the DFS guys are better at certain things than I would be. But the other thing people don't realize, it's not me. It's not like I'm here doing this. I have people who work for me. We do things. And I'm pretty sure if I devoted some resources to DFS, that we could do okay with it, you know? I think most people do believe that. I think there's some people who think that I'm talking about DFS, but I don't really know how DFS works. Like, I don't know, like, the rules of DFS, and I said that this happened when there was, like, that lineup lock controversy. But I think if you go back and look at, I don't think I really said anything that was inaccurate. I said that it didn't really matter if you knew the percentages, because you get those percentages on FanDuel anyways, but that there is a advantage to knowing it in baseball. And then also you don't know that these guys don't have access to what the sharps are playing, just like you don't know that they do. Like, we don't know that the employees are poaching the sharps information. But we don't know that they don't either. And that's where I think regulation is required. Can someone send me the link? My girlfriend wants to talk to me on FaceTime, and I'm like, I'm busy. Can I send, what is the link? Can she do it on YouTube or where? Can you send it to me, Joe?
Let me pull it up for you here.
Okay.
I'll DM it to you on Twitter. What do you mean, girlfriend? Is it girlfriend living in the undisclosed location? Is she back in Monaco? Where's?
No, she lives in, she doesn't live in Monaco. No, she's American. She lives in the United States.
Oh,
and so.
Oh, well, Bob left temporarily, so I'm gonna get some shout outs here while Bob's gone, since I haven't given any shout outs here for a little bit. Let me make sure I get him the link just in case. What we got here on Twitch, man? I'm sure we got a lot of new people out there. Welcome, guys. If this is your first time ever watching one of my podcasts, or if you're just a big fan of Haralabos, I know Haralabos got a lot of really big fans out there. Just enjoy hearing him talk. And to re-enter the pod, so we got a lot of regulars out there. We got Epicurus on YouTube. Ricky, what's up, Ricky? My boy Ryan, what's up, Ryan Briss, aka the Hand Historian on 2+2. Okay, 2 Live Merriam, Tommy Gun, Zhang Z. A lot of regulars out there. Looks like they're commenting today. Siwan Doza, hi from India. No shit. Matilda, what's up, Matilda? Andy Z, what's up, Andy? Clawin Doza, interesting name. Gimme the apples, what's up, Gimme? What's up, guys? We got a lot of people on Twitch. BMC, weird guy. Oh, let's see if we can get Bob back in here. Technical difficulties when we do these live sometimes. We'll see if this works. What's up, Martin? Kyle Green, Flips, Uncle, Daniel H. What's up, puppy? Let's see if this works. Trying to make it work. Might have to do something like let me see. Oh, got him back. All right.
Yeah, I don't. My Gmail switched. I've got 2 Gmails, and I guess I tried to log in as the other one. So sorry about that.
It's okay. Happens.
Sure does. What were we talking?
Girlfriend. You said you have a girlfriend.
Yeah. So yeah, she's coming out here in February. She's doing yoga. She's taking a yoga teacher training course. So she's going to try coming out here in February and seeing if she likes it. But yeah, we basically just see each other once every couple weeks or so.
I heard you have a tendency to date models. Is this true?
No, I don't think so.
That's what I've heard. I don't know. That's what I hear. Haralabos into supermodels, or
no. I just think I don't really date very often, and like my ex-girlfriend wasn't really last girlfriend I had was 5 years ago. She wasn't really a model. She did model, but she did like she also worked a bunch of other stuff, and she wasn't like, she was pretty hard to be a supermodel when you're 5'3". So
Point.
and this girl models, but she also does yoga and does some other things. But she does model as well. Primary.
How do you, so for a guy like you, I mean, you travel around a lot. You're obviously competing at a very high level when it comes to, you know, or sports betting or being involved in that world, and you're living in different countries. How do you end up deciding on someone to date? Like, it seems like it would take us a unique type of person for you to be like, yeah, let's give this a shot. Let's try to be something.
Yeah, it's tough for sure. I think for a while I just didn't want to have a girlfriend. So she's like, my girlfriend's like, you're not even on. It's just him shouting out people who are watching.
So she got to keep waiting.
Yeah. How does it happen? I don't know. It's tough for sure. Like, I think it's true for poker as well. Anytime you're traveling a lot, or anytime you're doing anything where it's not a standard career choice, where you're not in the same place at the same time. For me, it's really difficult because while I was living in Canada up until last year, I was, now you're like living in Canada and then you're dating and then you're like, oh, I'm probably moving in May anyways. It can be like, how are you supposed to start a relationship like that anyway?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's tough for sure. I don't know. How does it work? You find someone, you maybe you don't set out to actually think, oh, I want to have a relationship with this person, but then you actually like them. And so it happens. I guess that would be the way it works, I suppose.
You're not one to move to a different country for when you meet someone, are you?
I did that when I was like, sorry, I'm going to close all these things that are making noises. I did that when I was 25. I didn't move to a different country, but I moved to Montreal to be with a girl, which doesn't take a lot of motivation to move away from Winnipeg, Manitoba. So it wasn't like that's the only reason I moved away, but it was definitely one of the factors. But yeah, I'm pretty entrenched in this new secret undisclosed location, which I like a lot. And I will spend half my time here and half my time elsewhere. And, or maybe not half, but like a third of I like it here. So it would be really hard for me to say, oh, I'm going to move someplace else to be with someone. So it's kind of like, you have to accept me for who I am. I have a dog, get to like my dog, get to like the fact that I want to live here. And that can be a little bit difficult, I think, for some people. But she's really understanding. She's a good girlfriend. She understands a lot of the things that make it difficult to date me, none of which have anything to do with any of that stuff, I would suppose.
Does the dog there? I know the dog's pretty Coltrane. He's a pretty legendary dog in the poker world, man.
Coltrane's having a rough day. He's not used to this climate. So let's take a look and say hello to Coltrane. He's sleeping right now. He's got his tongue out. There we go. Let's say hello to Coltrane. There's the dog. Yeah, he's here. Yeah, he's here. You know what the sad thing was today? I took him for a walk, and he's 13 now. And for the first time, I kind of really saw him as an older dog. He just couldn't make it up the last sets of stairs that we were doing, like this workout thing. And I was just like, wow, this poor guy, he's old. He's 13. I carried him up, but it's weird because you never really notice how old they just kind of happened really abruptly. Like he went from wanting to play with his ball 18 hours a day to now like sleeping on the couch 18 hours a day. It's kind of sad.
It's pretty sad.
Yeah, he still has a lot of energy, but he's just not as much as he used to.
All right, so I was talking to a mutual friend before the podcast, and he mentioned a story, one of the most epic stories I've ever heard in my life. And can we talk about this?
With me? Well, I don't know if I can talk about it, to be honest, because I had to sign an NDA for it afterwards, but it just involved like stock options with a certain company and me rigging the system a little bit and them being shocked that they didn't limit the amount of stock you could buy. They allowed you to buy like a certain amount up to and including a percentage of your paycheck, which is what was in your employee account.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know if I can actually, it was a long time ago. It was like 2002, but I think I'm probably better off not talking about that now that I think of it. So.
Such a great story. What's so what is it like right now? Basically, NBA season starts in a week or something like that. What's it like for you now? What are you in the lab running sims, working on the NBA Dream Machine?
Yeah, working on the Dream Machine. Actually, I'm working on getting internet at my dream location here. That's like the hardest, most difficult thing. Trying to get like good internet. So I haven't been able to do anything. But yeah, I'm watching a lot of preseason games. trying to figure out what types of things will change. There's like a lot of talk about how this season may be different in some ways because, you know, the teams that did really well last year really embraced the 3-point shot. So there's that. There's always new coaches each year. There's always different players, rookies. So yeah, I just kind of, and I forget also every year I forget what I did to win the year before. And I'm always like in this panic, like how am I going to learn to win again? And so you kind of forget that stuff. I have a funny story for you though, actually. I don't know if you want, but it involves like a former NVG superhero. I'll say that. I won't mention his name, but this is like the closest to me getting rolled by someone, conned. So I had a guy, and people can maybe speculate in the chat as to who it might have been. I won't say who it is, but this person either lied about having a big account that we could bet. So this guy owes me a lot of money, this person I'm talking about, like 7 figures. And he was placing bets for me through a bookmaker who either existed and didn't pay him. Well, actually, no, the bookmaker definitely existed. So anyways, I had this guy who was making bets on my behalf, this NVG superhero. And then I haven't gotten paid since like 2013, since it happened, or 2012, I guess, 2012. And so now I'm wondering if the guy even actually made the bets or if he just didn't actually make the bets with the bookmaker. The bookmaker didn't exist. Something happened. I don't know. It's a weird situation, but I'm wondering if people can actually guess who it is. I'll be shocked if people know who it might be. Well, it's not E-Dog. People think it's E-Dog.
Yeah, it's not Eric Lindgren.
No, this is 2005.
Is Tom Dwan maybe in the realm of a possibility for this one?
I mean, I'm not going to say who it is, but I will say that this person is basically one giant excuse after another as to why he can't pay me the money that he owes me. And he could have been booking me. And if he was booking me, it's a little dicey because I don't know where he was located at the time, but I do think that bookmaking would be very, very bad for this person. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know if he was just placing the bets and forgot to place them or didn't place them or did place them and lost the money betting something else, was booking me. I don't know. I'm not sure who it could be, but.
What's Full said, it's just slowly hitting her all about that the guy didn't even place the bets.
I think he placed the bets, but you could certainly make the argument that he didn't, and he could be, I don't know, it could be dicey for that person to be doing such a thing, to not be placing bets when they say they are. That's almost like bookmaking. I don't know. That's weird.
So what are repercussions in situations like this? Because obviously you've told Eric Lindgren's story a bunch of times on various outlets, and what happens in this situation? This guy owes you 7 figures, allegedly. What?
Oh, he doesn't allegedly owe me 7 figures. He owes me 7 figures.
Okay, he owes you 7 figures.
The allegation, he will confirm this, I'm sure. What is the situation? You can't do anything about it. Like, what are you going to do? Threaten to out the guy on Chicago Joey's chat? That's probably about it.
Could
make a blog post. You could, I mean, I don't know. You can't really, you just got to hope that at the end of the day, someone is honorable. And the other thing is this person shouldn't not have, he should be able to pay you. Like he should, it doesn't appear to me that his lifestyle has changed in any way. In fact, you could argue it's gone the opposite way. He's still in action. He's still doing things. Why is he not paying you? So I don't know. You can't really do anything. I could sue him, I suppose. I don't know. It'd be a weird lawsuit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of these people that owe you this 6-7 figures?
No, he's the only one that's still around.
How around is he?
How around is he? No, he's the only one that I'm actually owed money from. I'm owed money by like lots of people, but it's all very, very small, manageable amounts that they're paying. The thing is, like when you're a successful gambler, you're always going to be owed. You're very rarely going to owe, right? Because you have to make a point of paying people when you lose. Otherwise, you can't. Your reputation is ruined. And the side part of that is you're also probably not going to lose very much. So.
Well, you guys can speculate that out there and listening to that. There was a couple. I guess people want to just talk about the NBA in general. So I'm a huge fan of the NBA. I play basketball all the time myself. It's the one sport I pretty much. I don't know. I really. Do you watch other sports besides NBA? Or are you just like pretty much all in on NBA and other sports are not that interesting after?
I try not to be honest. I try to have like a life. Like I enjoy spending time with my girlfriend. I enjoy spending time with my doing other things. Like I have a great girlfriend, got a great dog, got a great life. I spend so much time with basketball that when basketball season's over, I don't want to be watching more things that are forcing me to like sit on my ass all day. So yeah, I don't really watch very much else of anything when it comes to sports. I try to be just a basketball guy and just an NBA basketball guy to take it a step further. Because if you think about how many hours a day I spend watching basketball during the season, that doesn't make for a very good life for other people. Like I'm preoccupied. It'd be like a poker player deciding to spend all his time playing like Hearthstone after he's done playing poker, or like Sudoku challenge or something like that, or Angry Birds. It's like you wouldn't be very fun to be around.
That's definitely very true. Sudoku, Angry Birds, and Hearthstone. Those are quite the three different.
I just remember Sudoku because I was sitting next to this. This isn't a story that I'll only find funny, but there was this lady sitting. This couple. They were like right out of an LL Bean catalog. They were sitting like across from me on a plane one time. They had like the glasses on and the tweed, and they were like really like as super yuppie as can be. And they were both on their iPads reading a book. And then the lady looked over at her husband and like stared. They were honeymooners also. And she looked over at her new husband in his eyes and she's like, "Do you want to try a Sudoku challenge?" And the guy was like, "Yes." And they did a Sudoku challenge. I'll never forget it as long as I live. It was like 2007 or something. But I just remember that lady saying she wanted to try a Sudoku. Like it was as though she said like, "Do you want to go to the bedroom and try the new sex toy we got?" But it was a Sudoku challenge. And the guy was like, "Yes, I want to try the Sudoku challenge. Let's try it."
Wow.
I don't even know what Sudoku challenge is.
Someone in the chat said an interesting name, Dan Bilzerian. He's an MVG superhero.
I can 100% confirm that it's not Dan Bilzerian.
Okay. Are you friends with Dan Bilzerian? Or do you ever see him in LA in any of the games or anything like that?
I'm not like, I wouldn't say like we run in the same social circle or anything like that. I know of him, but yeah, I know of Dan, but I'm not like, I have like lots of people who are friends with Dan and some mutual friends, but we're definitely not in the same social circle or anything like that. And from what I've heard, he's a pretty honorable guy.
Do you think he's still the most popular poker player in the world?
I mean, is he the most popular celebrity in the world who happens to play poker? I don't know. Probably not. He's not a poker player, right?
I mean, everyone I meet around, like everyone I ever meet, it's like, "Oh, you play poker? You know Dan Bilzerian?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know Dan Bilzerian." Like, sure, of course I know Dan Bilzerian.
I mean, he's at the point where he's like a celebrity who happens to play poker, right? He's not, I don't know. It's weird. I will say that from what I gather, all of the stories about him winning that much money playing poker are true. Like I happen to know that based on like the scene that is true. That's not bullshit.
$50 million allegedly.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of these games, I don't know his specific situation, but I do know a lot of these games, if you're playing in that type of an environment, you probably don't have 100% of yourself. But I will say that with as much certainty as I know, being like, not like someone who was there, but just knowing people who were involved in some way, he sat down in a poker game against a legitimate individual. It wasn't like a farcical match. It was a real poker match and won $50 million. That's true. In heads up poker, for sure. So, whether he had like 10% of himself or 100%, I honestly don't know in between what number it is. But I do know that he won. So it's more than pretty much anyone, right?
I mean, I'm sure there are some Uber.
How much did he lose, right? That's the other question.
I'm sure there's some Uber high stakes Silicon Valley type home games where they're playing like 100K, 200K blinds or just something. No, nothing like
this. No, those are like the.
Is that only in our minds, in our poker minds, in our poker imaginations?
No, they like those guys are. If those people were really big gamblers, they would play in these big LA games where they actually do play 1K, 2K, 2K, 4K, no limit. There are some Silicon Valley guys who come to LA and play in these games. I've never sniffed one of those games. I've never been invited. One time I went to a poker game, and this is back when Toby was like running the poker scene in LA. And I went to a Laker game and sat like, "What do you do?" "Oh, I bet on basketball, blah, blah, blah." "Do you play poker?" "Yeah, I play poker." "Come with me to this poker game. We have this poker game." come with me to this poker game. At the time, I knew Toby very, very well. In fact, I had asked him if I could play in the game, told him I'd give him a piece, whatever. He's always said no. And I was like, to this guy, I was like, I don't think anyone can just play in these poker games. I was like, I'm pretty sure they don't let just anyone play. And it's like, oh no, anyone who wants to play can play. You're my friend. I've lost lots of money. And I showed up to the game, and dude pulled me aside. Was like, you can't play in this game. You need to leave. And that was it. I thought, okay, here's my chance. I'm going to finally be able to play. And I just told the guy, I was like, no, I didn't want to, like, you know, the kind of scam they run is like, oh, you know, this time you can't play, but like play it cool and we'll let you play the next time. You know, don't tell them that you're not allowed to play. Just there's no seat for you this time, but we'll make a seat for you next. Kind of like what's going on at the Aria poker room in that little private game where they don't really let anyone with a pulse. Anyone who like doesn't breathe out of their mouth is not allowed to play. Like you can only play in that poker game if you're a mouth breather.
You're talking about the John Robert Belland private game.
The JRB private game, yeah, the JRB hosted game. They don't want, which is understandable. The businessmen don't want to play against pros, but then it's kind of tricky. You can't really run it in a casino, right? You have to still abide by Vegas rules and regulations, which they kind of do and kind of don't at times. Now, like the rule is they can start the game with as many people as they want on the list, right? That's allowed. So they'll just like populate the list with like people who don't even exist, you know, like people who are like in China or like in a different country, and you can put your name on the list, but each person gets an hour to show up. So like, oh, I remember being on there and going like talking to the floor person. He's like, oh yeah, you're like fifth on the list, and me going like, okay, who's ahead of me? And they're like, Shen Shuash. And I was like, that guy, he's not here right now. He's in Macau. He left. Oh, Rick Solomon. Well, I can call, you know, Rick's in LA. He's not coming either, I don't think. Like, who else? I said, what other imaginary person do you have that's supposedly ahead of me on this list that I can't play? And then finally they let me play. And that was like the one and only time I was able to, because in that game, I think the more of an asshole you are, the better chance you have of playing in that game that time. But the nicer and friendlier you are, the better chance you have in like playing in the game other times, if that makes sense.
So it's kind of like the poker players. Most poker players are generally going to be non-confrontational in that situation. So they sort of want to get on JRB's good side and, you know, hey, let me get in that game. Like, you know, let me get in at some point in time. Yeah,
JRB's like a modern day Bobby Baldwin. Pretty soon he's going to be running the Aria Casino, just like Bobby Baldwin. JRB's awesome though. I like JRB a lot. JRB's like, I don't know, like I never ever get to play in his game. I'm not even a professional poker player. I'm not even good. Like I would actually be good for that game because I never play. People think I play really, really tight, but I played tight a couple times on TV because I only had a certain amount of money with me and I never borrow money. That's like one of the reasons. That's like one of the rules I have is I don't ever want to borrow money from someone in a poker game because then that person's going to be able to ask me to lend him money, and I don't want to ever be in that situation. So, yeah, why wouldn't you want someone who like plays poker once a year and who has enough money to play and who actually would give action? I don't know. It seems like
might have seen you fold kings on high stakes poker a bunch of years back, and that
was it. I'll never ever live that one down, and I deserve it, I suppose. It's like my curse. But I don't know, if you were sitting in that game and you were like, I didn't fold kings. I just called with, to Barry Greenstein. I did fold kings. Yeah. If you were sitting in that game and you had like 3 people who literally couldn't play poker, and you knew that Barry Greenstein was not only broke, but was staked in the game and had gotten a text message saying, this is your last bullet, right? You might be like, wow, like here's a guy who is like staked in the game, is on his last bullet, and is sitting in a game with like 4 people who are legitimately horrendous poker players. Why would you attack the one person and try to get him to fold a big hand? And so I just was like, okay, maybe he has queens, maybe he has aces, and maybe he could have like Jack 4, which is what he had, or some random. It just didn't make sense to me. I don't understand. I guess he thought he could get away. I mean, as it turns out, my plan didn't really work because I lost that hand. But at the end of the day, I was able to just sit around and wait for the idiots to make a mistake. I flew in for that game with, I think, 400,000, and that's all I had. Didn't know anyone else in the game I could borrow from. Had no money in Vegas. Flew in from Canada. Sat down in the game, knew that if I ran out of money, I was not going to be able to play again. So in that scenario, I don't think it's too unreasonable to fold kings to a guy who's like on his last bullet for life, you know?
Last bullet for life?
Has he been around?
That's a good point. I mean, there are a lot of tournaments.
I think we'll tell you, he's gone through financial difficulties. You know, he went from playing in these tournaments, giving away 30% of the money he was winning in poker tournaments. It's not like you get that money back later. He was giving away money that he was winning in poker tournaments to charity. And then, and then is not playing in the big games. Is like playing at the Commerce and smaller buy-in games. You know, he was putting in a ton of money into Poker Road. We all know how that went. I don't think there's any shame in being staked and being like cash broke or whatever. There's no shame. I went broke before. I'm not trying to make it sound like he's like he's a terrible gambler or he's what a joke, he was broke. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I had information knowing that he was hard up for money and that I knew who was taking pieces of him in the game and that he was staked and that he wasn't likely to get another bullet. So,
unfortunately, the king fold will carry. It's like Lex Feldhaus. He bluffs
forever.
Yeah, he bluffed one time on television, one episode, 5 times. He is known as a bluffer forever, and you fold the kings, and you're known as a big nit forever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't mind being known as a nit. I will say that I generally do like when I have more gamble when it comes to sports than I do poker because I really hate giving money away to people when I can actually see them. Like I hate bookmakers, but I don't really know who the bookmakers are behind things, so I don't really care but like when I'm sitting at a poker table and there's nothing worse. Like I don't tilt ever in anything. I don't tilt when I do sports. I don't tilt when I play poker. But like the closest I come to tilting is watching someone stack my chips in like a gleeful manner. Like that's as close to tilting as I'll ever come.
You never tilt. What's the secret?
I don't know. I think just if you look at all of these players nowadays, like if you watch a poker tournament, nobody gets excited anymore. No one gets sad. I think the secret is like having dulled emotions in some ways. Like I'm excitable in other ways, but for a while I took like, okay, I'm not supposed to get excited about winning and not supposed to the secret is not getting excited when you win. If you don't get excited when you win, you're not going to get excited when you lose. So the secret is balancing that and understanding that the math is in your favor and it doesn't serve you any purpose getting irritated and doing all that. And then the real secret is like now not living a life where you're like a robot like some of these online kids are. They're walking around like robots because they're so used to clicking buttons all day and never getting sad when they lose and never getting excited when they win. A pretty girl will come and talk to them and they won't even have a reaction because they're just muted individuals. That's sad to me.
I'm trying to think who would be considered like that. I mean, obviously, I don't find any names, but
there's a lot of people like that, and I think that it's hard not to be that way, in some ways. I don't know. It's weird. Like some of them they're not dead inside, but a part of them that is able to feel like sadness and joy has been like dulled because of they've been experiencing like the ones who get super excited and like break mouses when they lose. Those guys are still like going around life probably the opposite way. But there definitely is a lot of guys who just act like robots and they haven't got to the point in their life where they realize this isn't healthy for me. I need to actually experience emotions and happiness. And if it wasn't for, I mean, that's why Choice Center became a cottage industry in the poker world, right? All these wackos went to Choice Center because it filled this void in their life. Wait, I can look at someone in the eye for a minute and not look away? Wow. Choice Center changed my life. Because how many people actually look at each other in the eye when they're out in public? So
I know some people that swear by Choice Center. They swear that changed their life for the better. And I talk to some people who say Choice Center is obviously some sort of big manipulation of the brain.
I will say that I don't think it's a scam in the sense that they're trying to like run a cult or anything like that. I don't know very much about the inner workings, but I do know it's a multi-level marketing type of business where you are required to recruit other people. And if you were to talk to someone like Antonio, who was the Choice Center poster boy for a while, he will probably admit the same thing. Yes, I was required to sign other people up. I didn't like it because it was too much. Then you have other people who just go to the first few weeks and don't really get involved in that, and they get a lot out of it. You know, they repair relationships And for that, it's good. But I think if you're going somewhere and part of the onus is now on you to like promote it in some way and bring other people involved, whether it's implicit or explicitly outlined, I feel like it loses its value in some ways.
I can definitely. I had a friend in lives in California who went to Choice Center. You know, started making all the Facebook posts. Brought his mom to Choice Center. Brought like a couple other friends to Choice Center. I'm like, oh, I mean,
I know a guy who I played poker with in LA who went to Choice Center because Antonio told him to go and paid for it. This guy is worth like somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 to 300 million. The most miserable human being you've ever met in your life.
Really?
Like you've never met someone who really believes like that he has the worst luck in the world, that nothing goes his way. And this genius went to Choice Center, stayed at the Red Rock because he's also, this is a guy who goes and plays the Thai and Baccarat. That's how much you need to know about how smart this guy is when it comes to gambling. And he went to Choice Center and ended up losing like $3 million after the Choice Center experience that night at the Red Rock playing Baccarat. So I don't know. I don't think it always works for everybody.
He really bets the Thai and Baccarat?
Thai and Baccarat. I was like, you know how much money you're giving away when you bet the Thai and Baccarat? He's like, yeah, but how much do you get when you win? You know how good it feels when you nail that tie? It's like 14% big or something stupid like that.
Like the fucking Thai and Baccarat. I mean, I guess you've had a lot of experience around these super wealthy guys, and I'm sure you've seen guys who are extremely smart, but it sounds like you probably see a lot of guys who have a great deal of wealth, but are also not necessarily the smartest people when it comes to things.
So I'll tell you another story about the same guy. We're sitting in a poker room playing poker. I think this is maybe in Vegas. I'm not sure. And this guy tells me, we're talking about books, and he's like, books? You read? And I was like, what? And he goes, would you believe I've never read a book in my life? Would you believe this? I've never read a book in my life. And he told this because he thought that it would be cool that he hadn't read a book in his life and experienced this much success. And I was like, trying my hardest to be nice, because you have to be nice to the fish without making fun of them. But I couldn't help it. So I just said, I can believe that you've never read a book in your life because I've spent enough time with you to realize that's true. But what I can't believe is you fucking think it's cool to tell people that you've never read a book in your life. Like, what is wrong with you? And then there's like this girl who was massaging the game and was like working as a masseuse the next day. And then she was just like, oh, what was up with that illiterate guy? Like everyone was calling him the illiterate guy from that.
Jesus Christ, dude. This guy still play poker? Is he?
I think he gave up gambling. It's not Rick Solomon. People think it's Rick Solomon. Rick Solomon reads books. It's not Rick Solomon.
Do you find that a lot of the fish or the fun players who sort of pick up poker lose a bunch of money? Do they give it up pretty fast, or do they sort of stick around poker and try to end up as a winning player?
They've gotten smart, I think. I think a lot of them got to the point where they realize as long as they organize amongst themselves and only play amongst themselves, they can enjoy playing poker. It's when you start letting some of the professionals in. This is kind of like when we're making fun of JRB at the Aria, right? It's kind of the same thing. Like as long as the best player in the game is JRB, that game will last forever, right? When JRB is the pro, then the businessmen can play poker and enjoy it for a long period of time. But when the pro is like Tom Marchese or Jungle Man, or I did put Jungle Man in that game a few times, I will say. I like gamed the system to make sure he was at the top of the list. I actually put Jungle Man in a 3-handed game, woke him up at 3 a.m, got him in a 3-handed game with like 2 Chinese guys who were stuck. Who was the other person? Some pro who was some other non-Asian guy who was terrible. It was like the greatest 4-handed game of all time. And I'm like coaching Jungle Man because this is like the first year Jungle Man's really like had like a lot of exposure to live poker. He's like, anything I should be, he's like, is there anything I should be pay attention to while I'm playing in this game? And I was like, yeah, like focus on other people while you're not in the hand, look around, this and that, like, keep, don't look at your cards till it's your turn. He's like, right. And then he's like pulling out his phone and writing it down. Like, don't look at, I'm like, you have to write that down? Like, what is wrong with you? He's like, what does it matter if I have to look at my cards if it's not my turn? I was like, well, maybe you are giving away some information. He's like, oh, right. And then I like go away and come back and he's over there and he's doing this. I was like, oh yeah, don't use your phone at all. He's like, right. And I go over there and he's doing this. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And he was playing Angry Birds. He's playing 1K, 2K, no limit. He's playing 1K, 2K, no limit, three-handed, and playing Angry Birds when he's not in the hand.
How did the game end up?
He won. He crushed it. He won like he busted everybody. It was like I was like called the cancer of the poker room. The Aria Casino poker room cancer, because I got Jungleman in the game, and he beat everyone in the game, and they were calling me the cancer because I.
What
GRB was calling me the cancer of the Aria poker room.
No wonder they don't let you in the fucking games, man. Are you still, I guess, involved in this live poker cash game scene or the live?
No, not at all. I wish I was. No, I wish I was.
Yeah.
No, I would. I don't have time for it anymore. And like I said, the businessmen have gotten smart enough to realize that they can host their own games and keep like the pros out. Like basically the pros in the game, there aren't any pros in the games. It's like just businessmen playing, and yeah, there isn't really any opportunity, nor would I want to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's all kinds of like things you could do to get involved in some of these. Like for a while, if you wanted to get into the Aria poker game, the best way of doing it was staking JRB, right? If you stake JRB, you'd get a seat in the game. And so there's like all kinds of stuff. Now JRB's like the king of the poker room. He's like so pumped up. He's gonna have to change his nickname. He's got so much money now. But for a while, that was like years ago, that was the way to get into the game.
Yeah, I've heard that allegedly. I think Andrew Roble or Dan Bilzerian may have been putting him in the game, and yeah, that's what I've heard. He's up a
JRB might have been the only person who could bust Andrew Roble. I think that was like the only guy who could actually bust Andrew. It didn't happen, but it could have happened. I think if Roble would have staked them long enough.
Wow, quite the interesting experiences you have in the poker world, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, for someone who's a periphery person in the poker world, I guess I do have a lot of like tentacles here and there and all the little poker stuff that goes on.
Sure sounds like it. Do you have any poker plan to play any poker at all anytime coming up over the next year or so? I mean, I guess maybe the series or Monaco and stuff like that, but do you have anything else in mind you're going to play, or is it sort of you might not play poker for 6 or 7 months?
Yeah, I won't be playing. I mean, I play the spin and goes on PokerStars. I'm addicted to the spin and goes. When I have nothing, when like I'm waiting for something to happen, I go on and play spin and goes. But aside from that, I would say EPT Monaco will be the next time I actually play like real, actual poker.
What about PLO online? They got Zoom, 4 cards.
I used to play PLO. I played, I mean, I would never be able to hold my own now, but I was actually a decent live PLO player. I used to play in like the Sammy Farha game where Brian Townsend bluffed off all his money to Bobby Baldwin. I was around at that time playing PLO. I would play PLO live. I actually played a lot of heads up PLO back when the sites were still before Black Friday. I played a lot. So I was actually a decent heads up PLO player at the time, but now I would be like terrible. Like I've seen Ben 86 play, and I've seen the preparation he does. He hung out with me a little bit in Whistler back when I was in Canada. He stayed at my place in Whistler, and I was like, what are you doing now? And he's like, oh, I'm just going over hand histories. I was like, for 8 hours? Like, what but yeah, they do that. They go over hand histories and develop game plans for opponents, and it's, yeah. My next poker is probably EPT. I don't really have any plans on jumping into the Zoom PLO pool.
Yeah, I imagine if you could play in the private games with some of these guys at PLO.
If I could play, yeah, PLO or No Limit. I've actually done well playing live poker when I've been able to play. I got invited. I mean, I try to like not win a lot so that you don't get invited. But I don't know, I have like a bad reputation in gambling where people think I'm smarter than I actually am. Which is like the worst thing you could have in gambling. Like I'm not even really that smart, but people will think I'm smarter than I am. You want to have people think you're dumber than you are, not smarter than you are. So
I think you do a very poor job at that then, as getting people to think you're...
I'll tell you what my fantasy is, Joey. This is my fantasy. I dream about this every day. And I actually shouldn't talk about it because then, no, the fantasy is saying you're going to do it and then actually doing it. So this is what I'm going to do at some point. I'm going to wear a disguise. I'm going to go to one of those Hollywood makeup artists, pretend to be an old man, somehow get like ringed into one of these either live poker games somewhere or a poker game at the Aria Casino, and just soul crush as an old man, and then just stack all the chips, cash the money.
The internet died. Wait, no, it's back. Okay.
Back,
okay. Turn in between the story there.
But that I like actually have thought. You don't have no idea how much I've thought about that. Like, wow, how great would it be to be able to pretend you're an idiot for a day, or just pretend you're not? That would be amazing, right?
Why you gotta be an old guy? Can't you put just some makeup on and be like a young?
I think the old guy makes it. Young guy, I think I would have a harder time. I think I could. I think old guy's tough though, because you got to actually weather the hands too.
Yeah,
because
it's tough. That's what I mean. You can pretend to be like a drug dealer from Orange County or something like that. I mean, you know, I don't know what drug dealers wear the chains, do some facial makeup or something like that. You can keep your body and your arms sort of.
I think people are always weary though of like people. If you're a rich old guy, nobody thinks you can play poker. I think. How many rich old guys you know are great at poker?
None.
Right? There's just almost none. But I don't know. I guess like okay, if you want to get like you could probably come up with. You can do what some of these other guys do, where there's like you could actually. Yeah, I don't know. I think I want to do the old man thing for some reason. I think it would be more fun just because you can also get away with a lot more too. You can call people names. No one will get mad at you. What's no one's going to pick a fight with you. You're an old man, right? So you can just like all the people you actually don't like, you can just go after, make fun of, make jokes, pick on them, do whatever you want. It'd be like the ultimate fantasy for me. And then stack their chips, be rude. No one would even care.
What is the likelihood of this fantasy occurring, you think?
It'll happen one day. I mean, it'll happen for sure. I just have to find the energy to make it happen, I suppose.
What are these?
I want to do it at the Aria Poker Room. That's where I want to do it. I want to do it in disguise at the Aria.
You got something against the Aria Poker Room?
Nah, I just think it'd be nice to be able to play poker. Like, I don't play poker ever. I show up to the Aria Casino. I want to play in a poker game. There's a poker game. There's a seat open. Why can't I play? Why can't nobody play? That's like the only thing. Like if I was an old dude, they would, whether there was a list or not, they would just let me sit right down.
Fair point.
And yeah, I know, guys, I'm 40 years old. I'm almost old. There we go. All right, I get it. I'm 40.
How old are you?
I'm 40.
You're
I am
40?
old.
40?
40, yeah. Just turned 40 this year.
Man, well.
July.
I mean, I'm old too, but I'm not 40 yet. Oof.
I know, 40's old. 40 is really old.
Wow. 40. I'll be, man, wow.
How old are you, Joey?
30.
Oh, 30's not old.
I mean, it feels pretty old.
No, 40 years old is when you really can't do certain things because you think back and be like, okay, that's embarrassing to do that at my age. 30, you can still do anything. I don't know, just anything really. Like date like younger girls is embarrassing. Go get drunk and not remember something is embarrassing. Like, okay, how about just like walk around in like track pants and a t-shirt for like your entire life? That's at 40, that's embarrassing. Like there's certain things you
don't you do you do that? I imagine you do that now though. What do you don't do that?
I thought about actually dressing like an adult, but it's just so much more comfortable wearing like these new yoga pants are so comfortable.
I agree. I'm wearing some Thailand elephant pants right now. I mean, you know, but when you don't have an actual career to go get dressed for, you don't really like if you go to the couch and you're watching a bunch of NBA games, you don't really need to necessarily get dressed for that occasion. Yeah.
One of the rules though you should have is you should always like get up and take a shower, whether you're going to see anyone that day or not. Because when I was in Vancouver the last 3 years, I mean, if I left my house more than 5 times a week, it like other than to walk my dog, it was a miracle. Like I wasn't going out for dinner. I wasn't meeting people for drinks. And I still made a point, I think, to actually like get up, have a shower, comb my hair, pretend that I'm going to see someone, that sort of thing. I think that's important.
That last, honestly, I've tried that. I mean, I'm like, all right, I'm going to get dressed to go to work today. And then I walk, you know, over to my office here and I'm on the computer. I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't want to wear these clothes to work today. So
yeah. It's tough. I don't know. You have to have like, I like the idea that Ben had on his podcast with you of like having an office where he gets up and goes to work. And then,
yeah, that was a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Probably can't do something like that. Do you have like a really sick setup in your current undisclosed location right now?
No, not at all. It's like a nice place, but it's not sick by any stretch. I mean, it's nice. I mean, some people might classify it as sick, but the house I'm building is going to be, or I want to build, is going to be pretty sick.
What's the NBA setup like there for real and games?
I can get most of the games on like streaming on like 5 different TVs if the internet's good enough. So.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think?
I think you can get like there's like the different satellite providers can also get like some of the games, but not all of the games. So I'm not worried about it too much. I have like actually what I prefer doing is watching replays of the previous day's games that day, so it's more efficient, and I can just go ahead and record. I think someone just sent a picture of my ex-girlfriend as like an avatar. That's like pretty creepy.
Where?
It's just an image. It's not actually her, but it looks just like her. The dude with the yeah. So watching previous days games that I downloaded overnight. So I don't really need to watch the games to be able to do what I do live. I just have to be able to watch games at some point. I don't need to be watching them live, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. You would agree that do you use League Pass?
League Pass, and we download them from I don't know where we download them from, NBA.com. Ball Streams is one, yeah, but Ball Streams, I've used Ball Streams. I don't know if Ball Streams will be working this year, but yeah, Ball Streams is another option. International League Pass is better than actual League Pass.
International League Pass is one. I don't understand why doesn't regular League Pass just okay, so one time I VPN'd and used my Australian information to get International League Pass because it's so much better than actual.
It's cheaper too.
Yeah, it's the replay function. It's just I don't understand how can International be so much better than the actual American League Pass? It doesn't make sense.
Part of it has to do with like what they're allowed, the broadcast rules, what games they're allowed to show, and then because they're not allowed to legally show commercials, like to broadcast those commercials outside of the zone, they'll remove them from the replays. Like the International League Pass will let you watch a game beginning to end with no commercials. It skips right to that. To me is brilliant. But if you watch like the American one, you're like inundated. Well, now you'll be inundated with DraftKings ads and FanDuel ads. How disgusting will that be? You want to be able to fast forward through some of them. So,
can you give us any DFS NBA tips potentially to people out there? If you, off the top of your head, obviously, you know, if you'd be playing and you wouldn't be playing in your own name, so we might not actually know. Back out, back in. Okay.
I don't know what's happening here. Let me see how much data I've used. Wow. Can I give any tips? I don't know. I think there's like a lot of decent sites out there. Just kind of, I probably wouldn't be able to give any decent. Better. I mean, the stuff that I would give out, they'd probably be better off like going to like one of those roto sites and reading up on some dude who's doing Twitch streams for DFS.
I mean, did you tweet something like that? Like there's
a few rules with DFS, right? If you're on Twitter, you have to have DFS in your handle. That's like one of the things. Like you have to be like, I love NBA DFS as your Twitter handle. That's one of them. The other rule is that if you can't actually play poker anymore, you have to make like, and you're guilty of this, not that you can't play poker anymore, but the people who used to play poker are now having DFS Twitch streams, right?
I've streamed Twitch twice, but I'm learning, so I'm trying to learn with people. Like I can't stream me learning poker because like I'm not learning poker anymore, so I don't really need to do that. But
no,
I'm legitimately learning DFS.
Yeah, I don't get the Twitch thing. I've always been like, because I grew up in gambling, a different type of gambling, not poker, but other type, where you couldn't really, and I'm actually really stupid because I give out too much information, or I've given out too much information. But yeah, like you just keep everything close. Like you don't go and tell people what you're doing. And I've given out so little of what I've done, and it's already haunted me so much. Like some of the stuff that I was doing earlier is now, you know, people have caught on to some of it, and they've been like, I'll get like messages, oh man, have you been following that thing, this total thing where, and it's just like, oh my God, why did I ever mention that before? So when I see people twitching, or I see them like making videos, it just like the actual card, you know, the card runners, that type of thing. I'm just like, wow, you don't really get it. You're going to kill all the games a little bit sooner. And I think that's true for DFS. I feel like if you have an edge, you're better off just keeping your mouth shut. Do as I say, not as I did, I guess is what I would say, because I wish I had kept my mouth shut over the years, for sure.
Yeah, just on that point, I mean, this is a very small sample size, but for NFL, I streamed the first 3 weeks, and then when I started understanding it and winning in the 50-50s and heads up, I stopped streaming. I'm like, I'm not gonna sub it.
Because there's certain things that there's certain things that you could do in NBA that, like, yeah, I don't even want to talk about them, because even though they're obvious to me, they may not be obvious to everybody. And like what you just discovered, right? It's obvious to you, and it's probably not obvious to everyone. You discovered it. Don't share it with everyone. So
You said for yourself there was, I mean, probably don't want to even talk about them in case someone hasn't heard them, but you said there were things like for you that you might have mentioned before that people heard and then they started doing themselves. Are these like public things, or are these something that you probably don't want to?
there's like another group who figured out what I figured out in 2000 about like a certain aspect of like NBA halftimes, and I knew about this like a very, very, very long time ago. And if you knew about this specific thing, you basically would have got rich. And the lines adjusted a little bit, and then they didn't adjust, and now they're back. And now this other group who's discovered it, they basically went about it in the worst possible. They went about exploiting it in the worst possible way. Like they told other people, they told people what the angle was. They opened up accounts and only bet those specific games in those accounts. It just became like to the point where now it is so brutal. These games are so brutal that I almost want to tell everyone what the angle is. Like I came very close last year to telling everyone what the angle is, because they just did not deserve to have this bit of information. They were like entrusted with this bit of information. It was worth quite a bit of money, and then they went about like ruining the market every day with it. So yeah, I don't really want to get too much into it, but I would like to talk about it a little bit if I could, but I'm still making money from it that I still want to kind of use it a little bit. I don't know. And I'm weird. I want to keep on. I'm not at the point where I don't need to make more money. I'm not like, people think I'm super rich. I don't consider myself to be super rich. So
I wonder if we have different definitions of super rich. Super rich.
I mean, I think everyone has different definitions of things, but I don't think anyone, like my thing is that if I don't know, probably, maybe. I mean, there's rich, like people think I'm worth like I'm not nowhere near $100 million. That's for sure. I'm nowhere close to that. And to me, that's super rich. If you have like $50 to $100 million, you're super rich. I don't have $100 million or 50 million. So no, not rich.
Duncan actually, I know, I'm interested to hear what you say about this one. He said, but you're not playing against people in sports betting. So why would if you're giving away information? Why would it matter if you're giving away information?
It wouldn't matter, because if you bet the same, let's say you know that a certain player is, let's say Kobe Bryant. There was back in 2006, Kobe Bryant, or 2004, Kobe Bryant was injured for a big period of time for the Lakers. And the lines makers thought he was worth 4 or 5 points to the spread. So basically you could just, every time Kobe Bryant got injured, you could blind bet against the Lakers and be profitable. If you told everyone that, then guess what? The next time the Lakers played without Kobe Bryant, they wouldn't make a 4-point adjustment. They would make like a 1-point adjustment. So that's why you don't tell people these things. That's like a very simple example, but there's other examples like, I don't know, Team Orange does this in this situation. Why would you ever tell people that? Because the lines makers aren't idiots. They'll figure it out. Part of like one of the reasons why I think I've been so successful is because I'm really, really, I try to very fine line between getting my bets down, but not letting people know they're my bets, if that makes sense. Disguising my action, betting through different accounts, opening accounts through other people. It's not like the thing that goes on in poker where it's multi-accounting, because it's a little bit different. But it's just like if you can get an account where you're giving someone your information, they're betting your bets for you, that's better than me opening an account myself. Like that guy I talked about earlier who had never read a book before. That guy opened up was able to bet in Vegas for me and won a lot of money for me. But had it been me and I walked into the casino and said, I want to bet this game, they would have told me to walk away. But if it was the guy who was trying to bet the tie in Baccarat the night before, you're going to let him bet $100,000 on a game. That's so like a hypothetical.
I guess this sounds like one of the biggest challenges of sports betting is that you have to play all these sort of games. You have to play, sort of figure out what better ways to, I guess, exploit the current system and be able to get your bets in.
Exactly. And that's also why I don't really spend a ton of time sports betting anymore, because it is very, very difficult. I don't want to get in situations where I'm doing business with someone like the news, views, and gossip superhero who ended up, I end up winning money and don't even get paid. So it's I'm kind of like biding my time for it to be legalized in some ways, I think, or just trying to like really work with the people who I trust now. And maybe I'm not betting as much money as I used to because of that.
Do you ever have to worry about the people that you work with or have worked with you in the past sort of telling people your secrets or sort of doing something malicious in some type of ways like that?
Yeah, for sure. But it's, I mean, not everyone has access to the same information. So you limit that in some ways. And it's like the people who work for you or work with you, as long as you're paying them a fair wage or they have like a big enough piece of the business, it's really not in their best interest to leave unless they can also like get a hold of a lot of capital and find some investors and then find people. I think it's different if it was like this, if it was like a hedge fund and you had like an actual black box model, would be different, because there you'd be able to start another hedge fund, trade in markets, get capital, you've got a proven system. But here, because a lot of the secret sauce is actually figuring out when and where to bet and who to bet with and how to get paid and how to do it legally, that sort of thing. A lot of people don't have the expertise to win and the connections and the bankroll. It's never really come up. That, and on top of that, I've always been a pretty good job of, aligning myself with people who are trustworthy. And as long as you treat them fairly, they're probably going to treat you fairly too. So
how do you know they're trustworthy though? If you, I mean,
you must know. I mean, you've probably made mistakes in your life, but you've learned from them and you've dealt with people who, I mean, I've been screwed by a lot of different people, but people who I've let get really, really close to me in a business perspective, for the most part, I feel pretty good about them now. So
it's interesting. I mean, that's got to be challenging. You're finding these people. I'm guessing. I know someone in the chat said something about MIT where you hired people from there. Like, you're finding people. Like, are you in back? Like, are you researching the people? Are you talking to people that they know? It seems like you
don't just give everyone you hire like instant access to everything you're doing.
Sort of build up over time.
Yeah, you get more and more access and more, and anyone also only has whatever information that they need to know. So they don't need to know any other information. They don't have access to it. They don't need to know what we're betting or what I'm betting. They won't know what I'm betting. And then the people who are betting, they'll only know about the accounts that they're betting or this sort of thing, or the accounts that they have a thing with. So there's very few people who have a total picture of everything, and those people are, in essence, partners in some ways. So
have you ever asked to be a line maker? Mantis Stickles asks.
I worked in that part of the industry back in like early 2000s when it became clear. Like, I've talked about this before, like I invested in a gaming company, and like helped them run it, or helped like when things went bad, I like moved in and like helped them do things. But then when it became clear that it wasn't, like back in like early 1990s and late 1990s, it was like, oh, this isn't illegal. Sports betting isn't illegal. It's a gray area. And then when it became clear that it was illegal, I, got rid of sold my investment shares in that. So I have, but not like on a 100% day-to-day level or anything.
Jared said Haralabos said like 3 years ago Bovada was going to go down eventually. Ask him what he thinks about them now.
I mean, Bovada is great, as long as you can't win a lot when you're betting on sports. I mean, look, any site that's openly advertising to Americans and has a big enough marketing budget is going to eventually run into trouble. Look at DFS. They're not even supposedly doing anything illegal, but they're spending so much money, and they have there's such a big amount of money to be gained by shutting them down. If you're breaking the law and making money doing it, eventually, on a grand scale, eventually you're going to have to pay up for it. They're breaking the law. They're offering sports betting to American citizens. That is against the law. Eventually, they do a good job of like obfuscating their financial transactions, and more power to them. I personally don't think they're doing anything wrong. I think everyone should be able to offer this to but the U.S. government has stated that it's not allowed, and so if you want to do business in that environment, you have to abide by their rules. So, yeah, I don't know. I was wrong. They're not out of business yet, but I don't know. It probably won't have a happy ending.
I hope the happy ending. I hope it keeps going for a while.
Right. The guy who said Bet365 has been going for years. Bet365 doesn't allow American customers. They're a legally licensed book in the UK. They only accept bets from jurisdictions that are legally allowed to wager. Try opening up a Bet365 account in the United States and see what happens.
I don't know much about that site. I guess I don't sports bet, so.
Yeah, I mean, basically, there aren't any sites that are allowed to service Americans and will openly service Americans. The ones that do are like Bovada, and Bovada's been around for a while, and they are do a pretty good job of obfuscating their financial transactions and that sort of thing.
I always wonder what they're like. Who knows? Like they've been doing this consistently for years now.
Yeah, but they used to be Bodog, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that guy went on the run, Calvin Ayre, because he was like America's Most Wanted. He did like the same thing the DraftKings did. They spent money and money and money on advertising, and then they sold the site to some Mohawks in Mohawk territory. So now it's a First Nation. It's owned by Morris Gaming, I believe. So, but really, it's the same company, I think. Whether or not he's still involved, I don't know. He probably isn't. I don't know. I'm assuming they're telling the truth, but yeah, they've set it up in such a way that they've got their domain in a spot that isn't allowing the U.S. to go in and shut them down, and they're not allowing the U.S. to shut down their money for whatever reason. They're not able to seize their funds, so they're doing a good job of it. But it seems very, very difficult, you know.
Must be. I mean, no other site's really doing it. I guess Winning Poker Network is to some extent, but
yeah, yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. There's definitely I do think that the great thing about DFS being so popular is the sites, or excuse me, the leagues and the TV stations have gotten a taste of this advertising money, and I think they realize that, and the NBA realizes this, the new commissioner realizes this. There's a lot of money to be made gambling and allowing people to gamble on our sport. Because think about it, people watch these. If you know, people are going to be, the viewers are more sticky watching football games when they've got a rooting, and you know, when they've got some type of interest. If the game's out of hand, but their fantasy draft is still going, they're going to still watch the games. And so, I think the good thing about DFS possibly being like attacked in some ways by the U.S. government is it will eventually lead to some legalization that will involve not only sports betting, and not only DFS, but also sports betting as a whole, because there's just too much money to be made. There's too much money for the U.S. government to get off taxes. There's too much money for the teams. If you watch European soccer, all those teams are sponsored by sportsbooks. Not all of them, but a lot of them. They're sponsored by sportsbook. The kits on the soccer or football jerseys are all sportsbooks on the advertising around the stadium. Same thing will happen in the United States. There's a lot of money to be made for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it could expedite the process. It seems like with DFS, like it's all moving so fast. Like the DOJ NBOSS, Preet, whatever his name is. What's his Preet something? He's like the end. That's like the dude. You don't want to fuck with this guy.
Scares me so much. I don't even have any, like, I'm not even American, and the guy scares me.
Yeah, like that's not the guy you want coming after you. Anytime this guy's investigating you, that's not the guy. Like,
trouble, yeah, for sure. So yeah, I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's like if he thinks that he can not only indict these people, there's not going to be any, and get some money from them, then they will, and that's the end. I mean, how much money did Stars have to pay?
$600 million or something.
It's close to $1 billion when you factor in them bailing out Full Tilt as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that. Could DraftKings or FanDuel, like, could they actually be charged with some sort of crime in retrospect and have to pay some sort of fee in, like, looking back? It seems insane to think about that, but.
So IGBA, there's UIGEA, which is specifically for financial companies that are doing business with gambling sites, right? There's that carve out for daily fantasy. But IGBA, which is the International Gambling Business Act, actually precedes UIGEA, and you could make the argument that the sites that did business in Florida were breaking the law, breaking the IGBA law, and running a gambling enterprise. Just because UIGEA says this isn't gambling doesn't mean it's not gambling by IGBA, right? IGBA even says anything that is predominantly skill-based but still involves gambling. So, yeah, it's to answer your question, yes. Not only if they can deem that they can actually indict these people or charge them with something, there will be huge civil forfeitures in the hundreds of millions, enough to probably cripple these sites.
The Apex, what's going to happen to the Apex Predators, aka the high rollers who are making these bets? I love Apex.
That to me is the craziest thing ever. Did you read that lawsuit?
Yeah, yeah. The Apex
They
Predator.
basically were suing. So forget about the two people who worked for the companies themselves, Ethan Haskell
And the guy,
or
Birdwings.
whatever, right? But the other two guys, Drew Dinkenmeyer and Max Dallori or whatever, they were just sued for being too smart, for working harder than everyone else.
Yeah.
Think about how crazy that is.
Oh, so I'm thinking about that. Like, could they? Is that? I mean, it doesn't seem like there could be something that would happen to them, but I mean, if something does happen to them, that sort of sets a pretty ridiculous precedent, and then there could be many more lawsuits in the future, right?
Yeah, for sure. But I can't imagine. First of all, I don't think Drew Dinkenmeyer, or is it Dinkmeyer or Dinkenmeyer? Drew, whatever. Drew, I think he was anti-script. He was anti-using scripts. So even if you thought scripts were bad, which I don't think they are, but even if you did, he wasn't even doing that. So the fact I can't see that anything will probably happen for these people at all. For Drew, he's someone who got indicted for whatever reason because he was a winning player. It's a baseless charge for him, I think, personally, having read the lawsuit. The other guy, I think it's the same thing. The two guys who worked for the site themselves, I feel like that's something where a judge could get confused a little bit, and the idea of insider trading, even though it isn't insider trading, could get like misconstrued or confused, and I feel like maybe they could be in for a little bit of trouble. The sites themselves could be in for a little bit of trouble, but actual winning players who weren't working for sites, I can't see that happening at all.
I hope not, because it opens the door for a lot of other former poker players. Now they're all at the top of the DFS charts. It opens up.
I mean, it's so crazy. What a country! If that happens, think about the. I mean, I was think about the poor guy who left because of Black Friday, then came back to get involved in DFS, and now can't even do DFS anymore. Maybe that would be really sad. I don't know. It's weird.
Seems pretty crazy to. Like, I mean, I know my friend. I guess Vince. Hey, there's a lot of poker. It seems like there's a lot of poker players. I'm looking at like the Roto Grinders charts, and I'm like talking to people, and they're like, "Oh, this guy is this guy. This guy is this guy." I'm like,
yeah,
they're all former poker players. It's just.
Yeah, there's one guy I know who got screwed over worse than anyone I could ever imagine by this whole thing, but I'll leave it to him if he wants to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about his story, but he got fucked by everything you could possibly think of. UIGEA, this, that, the other. I mean, and he wasn't doing anything wrong other than just wanting to play poker and or DFS. So
it's crazy, man. It'll be I don't think it's going to be fast. It seems like things are moving really fast lately. It's been 2 or 3 weeks now where all this stuff's sort of gone, and now DOJ, FBI, there's all these scary.
It's weird. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still of the opinion that some common sense will prevail, and they'll realize that whether or not this is gambling or not, it's not. It does abide by UIGEA, which was specifically allowed. And so therefore they could maybe regulate it, but actually like indicting these sites seems like a really absurd thing. I don't see that happening, but if it happens, then wow.
Yeah, it'll be crazy. Do you have any people? They keep asking about NBA betting tips. Do you have any NBA betting tips for these guys? Of course, they want NBA betting tips.
NBA betting tips. I would say watch as much basketball as possible. Look at the difference between the opening line and the closing line. Try to understand why lines are moving. Read articles. That's it. I never wrote an article. This guy asking what the fleecing article he wrote recently. The only thing I write are tweets, 140 characters maximum. That's all I'm allowed to write. My brain won't let me write more than 140 characters anymore.
You used to write some cool stuff on your site, man.
I just got stupid.
You gave away too much, didn't you?
No, you just become too stupid. Like you spend all your day texting, talking via instant messenger.
Good point.
Tweeting. The idea of like stringing together an actual paragraph properly is just, I think as a society, we've kind of lost. That's why I follow so many of these basketball writers and I envy them. The guys who can actually write really, really well are like amazing to me. Guys who are able to actually sit down and write an article and follow through with it. Those guys are really, really talented at their craft. I really admire them, envy them. I don't have it in me anymore. I mean, I could, I suppose, but why? You know, I don't really get anything out of it anymore.
That makes sense. I mean, I guess in the future, is it something trying to raise your platform or trying to raise, I guess?
I don't know. I'm not really trying to sell anything. So I guess like and this is like part of the reason why I'm on social media is I enjoy the camaraderie of Twitter. Like the people who I follow games, you know, who I follow and are watching the games as me, same time as me, I enjoy that. And then part of it also is I think everyone has a little bit of a media aura in them. I think that's just me being honest. I think like you like it a little bit. You regret it sometimes, but you like it. Everyone likes attention in some ways. So that's probably like a weak part of me that actually seeks it out. But as far as like writing blogs and stuff like that, I can't see myself doing that. I think the last blog I wrote was about a playoff game, but I can't see myself really doing that again. I get asked all the time to write stuff for, like someone asked me before I went really crazy on DFS on Twitter, someone asked me to write something for a newspaper. I get asked to write basketball columns I was asked to write like a Grantland column back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't have the time and the energy to do it properly, I don't think.
Are you going to be on any more of the any more podcasts on Grantland? For, I guess you were never on Zeklo's podcast, but you were on Bill Simmons' podcast now that he's on HBO. Are you going to be on any of his casts coming up here in the future? He seems like he really likes you. Like he seems like.
Yeah, I got to know him pretty well. I mean, haven't spoken to him in a while but I would be open to it for sure. But I have no real plans to do anything. To be honest, I'm kind of busy getting started, like with the season starting and trying to get some of the other stuff done here. It's not easy getting set up before the season starts, trying to enjoy your life a little bit, trying to play tennis, trying to get more active, that sort of thing. So.
You don't play any basketball?
I don't play basketball. I played basketball one time with Vanessa Selbst, Jason Mercier, and a couple other people in Monaco during the EPT. And it was pretty funny because like Vanessa Selbst is like really, really aggro at poker and really, really aggro at basketball too. Like she's just really competitive. And Jason Mercier is really good. I'm not a very good basketball player, but I can play defense. I have long arms and I'm in shape. But as far as like dead eye shooter, that was never me.
Tennis, huh? Man.
Tennis is a great game. Absolutely love. I'm obsessed with tennis. Absolutely. Like I would go and watch YouTube videos of like kick serves last summer and spend like 4 hours a day watching videos, playing for 2 hours a day, practicing in the morning, every day 2 hours of tennis with a trainer. I just went nutso on tennis for a while.
That's what I do with basketball right now. I watch YouTube videos. I watch breakdowns on there. I go to the gym. I play by myself all the time. I play in games. I play. I do it all. It's like the same thing when I do with basketball. But
yeah,
I think
thing I like about tennis is like basketball. I don't get as much pleasure playing basketball as I do tennis. I think basketball is kind of simple in some ways. Like if you're by yourself, there's only so many things I guess that's not true. I guess I don't know. I just like tennis for some reason better.
Yeah. What can you do? You can't really play tennis by yourself, can you?
No, but you can, practice with a trainer a lot, and you can, take lessons, and you can practice your serve for sure. You can use the ball machine, but I always see the people who use the ball machine is like, just go hire someone to hit with you if you really want, or find a friend to play with. The ball machine just seems repetitive to me. I don't know. There's people at the tennis club I used to go to that would sit there and hit the ball machine all day. Like rich people at the Malibu Racket Club playing with the ball machine. It's like, dude, get a lesson. It's like $75 an hour. I'm sure you can afford it.
What's the friendship status like? I mean, you can't have many friends in these undisclosed locations, I imagine. There's not like Craig down the street. I guess you have the team in your house. Is there someone there right now?
No, they left for the day. I've got my dog with me, and I don't really know that many people here, but when I was in Vancouver, I didn't really have, I knew Jay Kuhn and Ben, but we went out maybe 3 times in a year, or I went out 3 times with them in a year. So I'm a pretty antisocial person when I'm working, and I'm okay with that. I realize I'm not normal in that sense, and I can actually be okay like just watching my basketball games, reading articles, reading books that have nothing to do with basketball, working out, and then when I'm done working, I can actually go and travel and be with people and get that balance. But it's not the healthiest lifestyle, but for me, it works.
Yeah, I mean, just from being in that sort of lifestyle with poker, it's definitely not the healthiest lifestyle. But I think if you just embrace that, if you're to the point where you can say, all right, like this is what it is, I'm not going to stress it. Because a lot of people stress about it. They're like, fuck, man, I got to balance this out. Like, oh my God, like all I'm doing is this and all I'm doing is that. And instead of just embracing their sort of singular focus, they stress themselves out all the time. And
sure. And I'm also lucky because a lot of my work involves watching basketball. So it's not like if you had to sit there and watch poker, you would go crazy. But like people watch basketball that don't even have anything to do with basketball betting or basketball DFS or anything because it's a great game. It's like, to me, I just actually love watching basketball. So 5 or 6 hours a day of my quote unquote work is not really work. It's like entertainment. You get to watch the best.
Who's your favorite team? Favorite NBA team?
So my favorite NBA team to watch would be
the
I
Bulls.
don't have a favorite team, but I love watching the Spurs for sure. And I liked watching Golden State play last year. I like all the. I mean, there's teams I really hate watching, and then I pretty much like watching the rest of the teams. Like I can't stand watching the Knicks. I can't stand watching Timberwolves. I can't stand watching.
Whoa! I can't watch Timberwolves just because they have too many.
They just had like a really poor coaching style, and watching a team hoist like 18 to 20, long range twos in a row is probably not the most exciting thing. I just like watching teams that actually play the way I would want to have a team play basketball, or like have like transcendental stars that, like LeBron in the finals. Watching that, to me, watching them play like basically caveman basketball, where LeBron has the ball for 21 seconds, backing someone down, holding the ball. It was the worst basketball ever, but it was enthralling to watch because it was LeBron, and it was working, right?
To some degree, yes. Towards some, I mean, pretty hard to overcome the.
Dude, he had Matthew Dellavedova. Look at that team that he was playing with in the finals.
Tristan Thompson, Mozgov, Dellavedova. Yeah,
it's absurd.
J.R. Smith.
J.R. Smith, yeah. I mean, that team was able to compete with a 67-win team on the other side was pretty remarkable. You gotta really give LeBron a lot of credit. So that to me was interesting to watch, even though I hated watching the basketball because it was just LeBron ISO for 18, 19, 20 seconds, and then deciding what to do at the end of the clock.
It was like 2000. What year was that when Cavaliers were in the playoffs and that was their entire offense? LeBron would just post up in like the center, right at the free throw line, and then make some sort of decision every single time down the court. It's like, this is just
it gets to be the year that they made the finals that he took where they lost to the Spurs with Cleveland. His supporting cast there was probably the worst supporting cast of any NBA Finals team. I mean, maybe this one last year rivals it, but he had I think Larry Hughes, I can't remember, Drew Gooden, Anderson Varejao, Ilgauskas, Sasha Pavlovich, Danielle Marshall. It was like the crappiest team ever. They got swept 4 straight, but the fact that he at his age was able to take that team as far as he did was kind of mind-blowing, with Mike Brown as his head coach to top it off.
Depop says, ask him about the $82 million deal Tristan Thompson got today from the Cavs. It's quite the a lot of people didn't think he was going to get that deal, and
I didn't see it happen. I'm just learning about it for the first time on Twitch stream through Chicago Joey's chat. I was too busy trying to teach someone how to make me Chipotle style salad burritos, or salad. What is it? Burrito bowls with salad. No, I like it this way. Do this.
You're coaching
when there's no Chipotle here, and you like Chipotle. I don't love Chipotle, but I like that once a week. I like that type of salad. You got to teach someone how to cook it for you.
That makes sense. I mean, that's why you have people that work for you, right?
There you go. Have someone to prepare the food. It's always nice.
I imagine it is. I guess that's what a girlfriend or wife sort of does too. Wait, back out. Wait, back in. Okay.
Here we go. I think after a while it just automatically kicks me off because they get suspicious as to why I'm consuming so much data.
It might. Okay, so when you were going to come on the podcast, you said I see they're like marathons, and I was like, it just happened. Like, I'm telling you, I don't plan for them to go this long, but it's really easy for them to go this long.
Yeah, it is. No, you have a good style of interviewing technique, and the interactive nature of the chat makes it exciting, and the fact that I have nothing else to do is part of it as well. So hey, it worked out.
Hey man, I still claim conversation, not interview. It's a conversation between two people.
How many people will actually watch the whole thing though? I mean, nobody's actually going to watch all of it. Like, I tried watching like more interesting people than me, and I can't imagine getting through a lot of it. We haven't been going that long though, have we? How long have we been going?
Pretty long. Yeah.
Yeah, time to call it. Time to call it. Want to take a few questions and then call it?
Let's do it. Well, I actually have analytics on my Google, and it looks like about 18% of people make it to the end, even of the 2.5 hour ones. Like the Ben 86 one, that's 3 hours. They make it to the end of that one.
That's amazing. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
They do.
That's pretty cool.
And a lot of people watch them all. I mean, yeah, it's a surprisingly a large number of people who listen to them on, like, and especially on iTunes too. People listen to iTunes, and they'll usually listen to all of them too. So.
Yeah, you should be proud. I mean, you've started out doing something that you like doing, talking about your poker PLO, then it got into a poker life, and people seem to be taking to it. It's pretty cool.
I think it's like a unique. It's really a way you get to hear more about your favorite people in poker or people that you're interested in, and you get to hear about them in like a different style. Like it's very rare that like you get to hear. I mean, about someone like you or someone like Ben 86. Like you don't really get to hear this, like these questions or this type of discussion happen with these people very often.
Yeah, for sure. And you definitely have, like, it's more of a casual, there's no constraints. And just the interactivity part of it is kind of cool. Someone kept on asking about VIFFER stories, and I was like, I don't even have any VIFFER stories. Then I forgot. I have like a pretty great VIFFER story.
Everyone has a great VIFFER story. Let's hear yours.
So VIFFER, so a friend of mine, me and a friend were like renting like an apartment together. I had my own place, like I had a house, and then we rented an apartment that we were just going to turn into like a hangout place. Like we put in like a pool table, we put in like a poker table, we put in TVs, we had like a bubble hockey machine. We would play poker, we would, watch sports. It was just like basically a clubhouse. And so my friend decided that he was going to invite VIFFER to come stay at his clubhouse and teach him how to like live life. So my friend, I could say who the person, it doesn't really matter, but it's Rick Solomon. So Rick Solomon has this apartment that he's got with me that we're like, I'm barely ever using, and Rick's like completely dominating it. And so he decides he's going to hire this guru who's got like this health and fitness guru who's going to transform both of their lives and get them into shape. So the bet is, I think it was like $150,000 or $200,000 bet. Some amount of bet was made whereby you had to do whatever the guru told you to do. If the guru told you to do 10 push-ups, you would do 10 push-ups, or as in VIFFER's case, however many push-ups you could do without collapsing, right? You couldn't eat anything that the guru didn't cook for you. You couldn't, the guru said we're going for a hike, you'd go for a hike, you name it. If you broke any of the rules, you lost the bet. And the bet was intended for both of them to, get in better shape and have like a decent life. And so anyways, they're doing this for like, I think maybe it's day 2 of the guru bet. It might be day 3 of the guru bet. I'm not sure. And so the guru, VIFFER, and Rick's daughter go to a convenience store to buy some stuff that they need. And they come back, and Rick's daughter is like, I think she's like maybe 13 at the time or 14. I'm not sure. And she's like, Daddy, 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 I have to tell you something. I have to tell you something. And he's like, what? And he's like, no, I can't tell you. I have to tell you in private. I have to tell you something. I tell you something. And he's like, it's okay. You can tell me. What is it? What is it? And he's like, Daddy, Daddy, the fat man, speaking of VIFFER, the fat man stole a Snickers. VIFFER went to the Rite Aid and shoplifted a Snickers bar so he could sneak it out from the guru, and then went and ate it in the, so we're like, VIFFER, like Rick's like yelling, VIFFER, get out here. And so VIFFER comes out of the bedroom. What? And he's like, did you steal a Snickers bar? And he's like, she's lying. I never stole a Snickers bar. We go in the bathroom. He's got the Snickers bar like buried under like rolls of toilet paper. So think about how insane VIFFER is on day 2 of the bet. He just can't even make it through like day 2 of not having a Snickers bar. I
thought that story was going to go a different place. I'm pleasantly happy it went to the Snickers and not to someplace else.
No, that was it. And so he lost the bet. I think Rick even let him out of it too. He just was like, whatever, if you don't want to do it. But he was like, she's lying. I don't know what she's talking. And then he was like, he even got to the point of like, oh, I didn't eat it. I just wanted to smell it. I just opened it up and looked at it. I promise I would never do that. It was just like, it was really, really ridiculous. But yeah, VIFFER didn't last. He lasted like a couple days, and that was it.
Fucking.
That's my good VIFFER story. The other one is VIFFER also challenged me to a fist fight one night at the apartment where he was high on he'd gone to get his mouth redone to the dentist, and he had all his teeth replaced, put in like brand new grill, like now VIFFER has like the greatest teeth ever. He looks like a Hollywood movie star because he's got like perfectly straight like veneers all over his teeth.
Mm-hmm.
But he was like high on. He almost died in the bathtub. Actually, he went in the bathtub. Whoever was supposed to be like escorting him from the dentist place, he was so high on the drugs from the dentist. They were supposed to like look after him. They didn't. They just dropped him off at the apartment, and he almost like drowned in the bathtub. And then he was being really annoying. We were like watching basketball. I was like, yo, VIFFER, like leave us alone. He's drinking like the Guru's green drink and it's spilling all over his face because he can't swallow because his mouth is numb. But anyways, he started like shadow boxing with me, and then somehow the topic came up like who would win in a boxing match. You were VIFFER, so we like made a bet, and we were all gonna go to the boxing ring, and we had because Rick was like a training boxing, but yeah, VIFFER ended up like shadow boxing and punched me in the face, and then I tackled him to the ground and put my arms on top of his and started slapping him in the face. That was the only other VIFFER story I had. I don't have much interaction with VIFFER, but my 1 week that I spent being around VIFFER, like a grand total of I spent maybe 4 hours with him over that 1 week period, and that was like the whole bit, basically.
Wow, everyone's got a great VIFFER story. I mean, my friend Tyler got introduced to his first wife through VIFFER. Obviously, Lex has some great VIFFER stories about VIFFER walking up to a table and saying, "I'll flip the whole table." I mean, it's just there's some.
How about when VIFFER went to the airport and had like all that cash on him and got arrested, and they took his money. They like the DEA rolled him for like 100,000 in cash or whatever it was. And they were in, I can't remember what state they were in, but he ended up having a warrant for his arrest 3 states over for like an unpaid parking ticket or something like that. Some warrant for his arrest. It wasn't like a big thing. And the cop hated VIFFER so much that arrested him that was like, yo, you've got this guy here. Do you want to come get him? And the guy's like, we don't care. We don't want him. We're not going to come get him. It's not that big a deal. And he's like, well, what if I meet you halfway? And they're like, no, we're not driving halfway for this guy. And the cop like on his own time drove VIFFER 3 states over to drop him off because he hated VIFFER so much. That's a pretty great VIFFER story. Some cop just volunteers to drive 18 hours off duty to drop him off.
Well, I hear VIFFER's married now, so maybe he's calmed down a little bit in his married times.
Maybe. I don't know. Every once in a while, I'll get like not every once, but once I got like a weird text message from VIFFER, but I think he meant to send it to someone else, but it came to me, and it was like the most, he can't spell worth. I knew it was VIFFER. I was like, whose number is this? Oh, it has to be VIFFER, because it was just like, we're losing, but it was LOOOSHING instead of losing. It's kind of crazy.
Dan Smith on YouTube. I think that's King Dan. What's up, Dan? He says, would you feel safe having significant money on the DFS sites? Now that King Dan's a DFS pro also and binking all these scores on DraftKings and FanDuel.
Would I feel safe? My question is like, what would be the point in leaving a lot of money on there? They take PayPal, right?
Yeah, they take PayPal.
I would just use the money I'm using and keep the rest on PayPal, maybe. I mean, it's like I would feel safe if I was forced to keep money on there. I'd feel safe that I was going to get paid, but it's kind of like like on the 1% chance that the cost to move the money around is nothing to you. So why not move it around, basically? But I'm not worried about it too much. I guess, yeah, I would feel safe. I probably wouldn't even PayPal it off. Depends on how much of my net worth it was, I suppose.
Ed says, it's Haralabos, looking forward to watching the Austin Rivers, Lance Stevenson Clippers second unit this season. Of course you are. Come on.
I am. I'm super. I said that Lance Stevenson played poker like, or played, sorry, I got a text message. It said that Lance Stevenson played basketball like someone who created their own, who took a picture of themselves and made their own player in their likeness on NBA 2K16. That's how he plays basketball. Like someone would, they want to get their My Career stats up, so they play. They never pass. They take the worst shots ever. That's kind of how they play.
He kind of does. That's a really good point. Just from playing a lot of NBA 2K recently, he really does play like a my player in the park would play, just randomly doing things and trying to score every single time. So
yeah, the one Vine that someone sent was pretty. That's the one I linked to when I tweeted it. It was pretty ridiculous. He basically went behind his back, no reason to, went between the legs, and then ended up shooting like a fall away long two when the shot clock was expiring and fell out of bounds. So
could be some interesting interaction between Chris Paul and Lance Stevenson this year.
I don't imagine they'll be going bowling together on their off days. Next to each other on the plane. I don't imagine that'll be happening.
But he said, well, this kind of ties with that. Just Bob, do NBAers ever get mad at your tweets?
I think I had like a couple, like someone, I can't remember. Oh, Jamal Crawford. I was like, I made some comment about Jamal Crawford and how he's, you know, basically his guy.
Back out. Back in.
Back again. His guy scored on like every possession, and I was like, dude, there's more to basketball than scoring. Like, play a little defense now and again. And he wrote me back like, you should watch the game more or something like that, or stats aren't everything or something like that. I don't know what it was, but that was probably about it. I don't really get that much. I do get sometimes when I'm sitting courtside, someone will look at me, like a referee sometimes, or like there's been when I for Game 7 of the finals, when I was sitting next to the Spurs bench. I think there's a couple players who were like, because I had done like some ESPN stuff, I think like they kind of knew who I was, but not really too much. But I have to cut it short. I have to cut the podcast short. I gotta tend to family matters here pretty soon. So
yeah, we're cutting it short here.
We're cutting it short.
We're cutting it real fucking short here.
Real short. So I want to thank you for having me on. I enjoyed it.
Hey, I want to thank you for coming out, man. This is a lot of fun.
Keep up the good work, Joe. Everyone, I'll be sure to tell all my friends about Chicago Joey and his wonderful GTO Optimal Life podcast.
I agree, man. Is it a GTO Optimal Life podcast? Guys, I'm not sure when I'll be back next. King Dan, I know we're going to have him on again soon. I'm not sure when. Jeff Gross, we're going to have him on soon. Not sure when. And Patrick Leonard, not sure we're going to have him on. I'm not sure exact dates, but I'll let you guys know. Follow Haralabob on Twitter at Haralabob. And I think that's it. Haralabob. Peace out. That's it. We're done. Much love. Guys, thanks for tuning in. And find it on iTunes. If you want to watch the replay back, if you're watching this live, you can go to the YouTube. And that's it. Peace out. Much love. Adios. See you later.